19th, 20th century when they came over from also, Russian Empire.
Hmm.
They were actually my family, dad's side, Polish, Ukrainian, Jewish is the kind of the umbrella, Ashkenazi. Um, but my mom is, English, German, Scotch, you know, all sorts of the whole European Union is in this blood. It's
Gotcha.
exciting.
Right on. We're live, by the way. Just want to let you know.
That's terrifying. That was
don't
sneaky.
don't overthink it. I like to like have a normal like conversation leading up to, and then at any point the timer just goes off. So no, we're
That's
doing
that's
great.
blood. I
No,
guess because
we're
we're wearing maroon.
that's right. That's right. Thank you for joining me, Ben. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule for this.
Sure, Mark. Pleasure.
Yeah, and you mentioned earlier that you just came from an exhibition. Whereabouts was that?
Oh, well, yes, some travels. Long story short, I just came off of a world voyage. It's gonna sound crazy, but I created an artist residency with Holland America Line, a cruise ship company. Way back in 2014, I wanted to travel the world, but wasn't a millionaire yet. So I made a proposal to this company, just because their name is Holland America, so there's a tradition of their company going way back, and a lot of their aesthetic is based off of the Dutch Golden Age of sailing, which produced a lot of beautiful maps and different specimens of cartography, which I loved drawing growing up. So there was just this natural, I don't know, attraction to this company. And my angle was that I proposed teaching a drawing class. I saw the ship goes around the world, this one of their voyages, and I thought that would be amazing to do. So I proposed creating a drawing class for them, presenting a lecture series on art around the world, and then also creating a large drawing depicting the whole voyage that would be unveiled at the end, a nice punctuation to conclude the voyage. And they said, we love the idea. Welcome aboard. And so I've been doing that since 2014. And yeah, so I just got back from this year's iteration of it just a couple weeks ago. So it was exciting. And that was a lot of words thrown at you right there.
So an artist collective that's also sponsored by what do you say, a cruise ship company?
An artist residency. So just like a one man kind of gig. And yeah, with Holland America Line, they do voyages all over the place, but they're known for their longer voyages. They call them grand voyages. So they'll do circumnavigations around South America, Africa, or the Pacific, and then also one big one each year around the world. And growing up, I loved ships and the Titanic. Little boys love big machines, kind
Of
of
course.
thing, and ships were my kind of deal. And so this idea popped into my head. I couldn't let it go, so I sent in the proposal, and it just, long story short, they loved it, and they said you only do it 1 year, and then more than 10 years later, it's been a beautiful relationship. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's how does that even come about? Did you just one day, like as you said, you just didn't want to wait till you became a millionaire, or just like screw it? How can I leverage this for it to happen? Kind of like how like Adam Sandler, he'll exclusively shoot movies in like tropical locations, or he used to anyways, just so that he can get a vacation.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. With anything, but especially with art, you can take it anywhere. And gosh, I love art history in general, but art history too. And the Ninja Turtles, Michelangelo, Raphael, Donatello, those guys.
Of course.
Michelangelo. I said Michelangelo twice, but Leonardo, Raphael, Donatello, blah blah blah. You know, they were they didn't stay in one place. They traveled and went to where the money was, where the patronage was. They went wherever they could realize their ambition or dream. A lot they were compelled to create. You know, and I just had this. It was kind of admiring their spirit was my approach. And again, art is all over the world. It's one of the binding agents of civilization, of a civilization, and then civilizations when they get together. Art's usually the first thing that's passed around and brings people together, and that's my spirit to things. And yeah, it was bold to just send in a proposal to the company. I had discovered some friends of mine worked on cruise ships, and then I saw that this particular line had this particular voyage, and it was just something that embedded itself. I could really see myself doing it, and I shot my shot, as they like to say these days. So
Wow.
that's the story there. Yeah.
That is nothing short of incredible. You saw your shot and you actually took it and it worked and now they want you to keep doing it every year.
I mean, I grew up with the program too. It was right after school for me, and I didn't have oodles of public speaking experience just yet. So it was, you throw yourself into things. Looking back, it was kind of crazy. It was crazy, but yeah, I also believe when you're creating a drawing that it draws you as well, and that's what experience is. It's just the experience experiencing you in a manner, just that's kind of the point of living, throwing yourself out there and then growing, learning, evolving, and then you look back and you're a different person than you were a week ago, a day ago, week ago, year ago, decade ago. And keep that rolling, I think. That's one of the points to living and art.
That is so beautifully put. Wow, incredible. Okay, that's interesting because I mean some of the artists that I've talked to, they mostly self-trained, self-taught, but um,
Yeah.
have yet to encounter someone with like such a maybe grandiose isn't the right word for it, but such a like a widespread vision.
Megalomaniacal, maybe.
Well, no, I wouldn't go that far. No, but
Yeah.
it's a very intentional way of throwing yourself at life, as you put it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I love history. Kind of getting different perspectives on things, and you start noticing a trend when you read all these biographies. Why are these biographies written about these men and women? Well, it's because they threw themselves into life or into an experience, and that's kind of the common theme throughout any biography is they head into the unknown. Literal hero's journey kind of thing. I'm not calling myself a hero, but I think it is part of the pattern of human life is to just at some points you just jump in and you'll be met with wonderful failure many times as well. And you learn from that. That's the point. And if you're failing, you fail with grace. You don't burn bridges or anything. You just build. It's about building. Coming from a guy who draws buildings constantly. Of course, I'm going to mention buildings, but yeah, it's about learning and evolve. Not it's about evolving. I think with art, you can take art in many different directions. There's no one way to do art and to learn art. That's what art is. It's everything put into a visual spectrum, I guess you could say. Um, but I'm about to go into 10 different tangents, and I think I should let you ask a quick question, and then I'll
No, no, no.
direct.
Please do, please do. That's the purpose of the show. I give you the floor, and we just talk our way through it. That's it. But by all
Mm.
means, tangent away. This is what
Oh,
I have artists on here for.
gotcha. Yeah, well, like I said, you let the drawing draw you sometimes, and that's when you know things are going well. That's a little kind of metaphorical, kind of metaphysical, but yeah, you just let go sometimes and see what happens. Um, I had a point and it disappeared. It'll come back. It always does. But yeah, you just I think it's good to just jump into the unknown. And it's, again, I'm kind of on brand with that because I love maps and things of great detail. Being able to see the big picture. In order to see the big picture, you have to fill in the blank spots of the map, as it were. And how do you do that? Well, you either listen to someone else's story about it, or you go and do it yourself, or you invent it. Those are the best maps, where they just invent certain spaces, and that drives other people to really wonder and ponder, is that right? Well, we'll have to go there and find out. So there's a sense of discovery that's important. that every drawing or painting, that's what a work of art offers, is an opportunity to discover more about yourself. It's a mirror, really. But yeah.
Yeah, and speaking on big picture, some of these pieces of yours here, um, I'd imagine there's a certain amount of pre-planning that goes into it. Sure, maybe drawing like some rough shapes and outlines here and there, but the
Mhm.
sheer amount of detail that you have in them is nothing short of extraordinary. Like when I first saw your pieces on Twitter, um, I immediately remembered there's this one artist, I think he's based in New York, where he has a savant like photographic memory where if he takes a flight somewhere,
Mhm.
or in like the famous example, he took a helicopter around New York, spanning the entire city, or at least Manhattan, and was asked to draw the entire like layout of the city, and he did. They got this long, um, must have been like 20-foot long sheet of paper that was going up, not to a tall ceiling, but high enough for him to reach, and he detailed every single street corner, everything that he saw just from memory, and they compared the map afterwards, and they're like, oh, this is. There's no words for this. There's nothing. We can't make sense of this. This does not
That's
make
the point.
sense.
That's
Yeah.
the point. The kind of being ineffable is that's the power of art right there. It leaves you perplexed, in awe, and yeah, it just struck in wonder. Stephen Wilshire is his name.
Oh, there you go.
He's an inspiration. Yeah, he's marvelous.
But yeah, so when I saw your pieces initially, I that's exactly who I thought of, because the amount of detail, the more that you zoom in, all those little lines, they eventually add up to something that's greater than itself, than it's just that individual piece. Is this something that you've always like kind of leaned towards in the beginnings of your art career, just like having doodles and expanding them into these giant masterpieces?
Masterpieces, you're too kind, especially when talking about my early career. But in short, yes. Let's see. In middle school, you're given an agenda, maybe in your experience, or you're given a little book to record the homework you need to do,
Hmm.
assignments and whatnot. And I never used it for that, but I would use it as a doodle book essentially. And so yeah, I just start doodling a little thing, and it would expand and expand, eventually taking up pages. I was drawing one time. I think it was during a quiz, and my math teacher walked by. This was during a quiz, and he said, "You just keep drawing." um, so no, just drawing's been with me. Drawing's with everyone in the beginning. As soon as you can walk, you're starting to talk. Even before you're starting to do any of that, you eventually find a crayon, or a crayon finds its way into your hand, or a marker. You start scribbling. So I just never stopped. And the kinds of things that I would draw when I was really young, a lot of kids, when they draw animals and people, they're squiggly meshes of bean bags and little organic shaped thingies. Mine were always very square or geometric. And so there's always been this, again, kind of a gravity towards something more geometric, voluminous, dimensional. Uh, so yeah, it's it's been a evolution, which is exciting.
Interesting, because I used to do something similar as a kid, nowhere near as
Hmm.
good, but I would.
Trust me, mine were hideous.
But there's something about making those isometric shapes, and I love the making like one side a complete reflection of itself on the other side. And it was just triangles and jagged lines, and none of it ever made sense, and they were all just doodles that never really went anywhere. But there was something about that act that I just found so
Yes.
relaxing and calming, um,
Yes,
that it,
exactly.
it was like almost therapeutic in a sense.
It therapeutic, educational, just it turns on all different parts of your mind, especially when you're younger. Um, it just activates creativity too, just to be we don't have to dive deep into psychology, but yeah. Uh, you're taking the chaos of the blank page and starting to organize it too, bringing order, a sense of rhythm, uh, and such. It can be very musical too. This sort of direction.
Yeah, it certainly can be. And I had an art teacher that actually he had the same kind of style,
Hmm.
but his were a lot more expansive. Obviously, as a teacher, or at least I would hope so from memory. Um, but yeah, he would make these giant pieces. Nothing on like the scale of yours, where like would stand almost the size of a wall. Um, but I remember looking at that and I was like, oh, so that's what's possible. Like what I got right now
Hmm.
is a lot of just jagged lines and circles and like geometric shapes, but he's actually got characters. There's a movement to the eye when you look at his pieces. I was like, oh, if I
Yeah.
actually keep at it, I can get there. And I never did, but it was just nice to see like the
Shame,
end result of it.
shame.
Guilty.
No, that's the trick is patience and persistence. Passion, eventually, that helps with it all. But patience and persistence. And that's great you had a teacher whose work kind of enthralled you and spelled it out. Like, I mean, you can take my drawings or anyone's drawings or paintings for that matter, and you can break it down to just lines, dots, squares, triangles, cubes, spheres. That's all it is. That's what the old masters taught as well. Rubens, just cubes, spheres, and cylinders. Cones as well. And you can make masterpieces with those simple things.
Turns out you can. Turns out you can. And what is it that that kept you going about it? Was it just once again that the lack of a better word, or just I don't know, immaterial feeling that you have as you're doing it, just the meditative act?
Well, in my previous life, I was a Renaissance sculptor. No, I was, growing up, I became the drawing kid, the art kid in class, the good drawer or whatnot. Every class has, the clown, the sport person,
Mm-hmm.
the stereotypes. I became the drawing person. And I like that. People kept saying you should be an artist when you grow up. So when you hear that for 18, 20, 25 years, and still today, that kind of keeps you going. Pat on the back, dopamine explosion. I can tell you a little vignette, though, when I was humbled, which was exciting and awful at the same time. Back in kindergarten, I was the drawing kid. I drew the best boxy tigers and best boxy dragons. And then one day, this new kid arrives. And I always change her name because I can't remember her name, but we'll go with Shannon today. But I'll never forget this day because she showed up and she loved drawing too. She started to draw, and what she drew blew my mind. It was like an alien arriving with advanced technology. It was a paradigm shift, and I think that's always stayed with me too. But what she drew was one giant stick figure with a shadow coming off of it, as you'd expect, kind of at an angle actually. Uh, and then a smaller stick figure with a shadow kind of angling off of it. And that doesn't sound very complex, but what she had drawn was perspective. She had
Mm-hmm.
illustrated she broke the two-dimensional surface of the page and had invented an entirely new dimension of space and time. It was revolutionary. I I was so angry, but so inspired at the same time. I immediately it was like if you were one tribe of barbaric human beings and then you see the other tribe across the valley create fire, you're like, well, that's amazing, how do we do that? Or the wheel or something. And she had brought to me a form of elementary perspective that I just fell in love with. I remember it viscerally, and I think that train's always been running. That ship is always sailing, I guess you could say.
That is quite the memory. I love
Yeah.
how like how even like it's one I would assume one of your earliest memories, but it's so vivid to you that you remember every single detail in that regard. Just how shocking it was in that moment.
It helps to have all the emotions erupting at the same time, too. Anger, fear, jealousy, rage, joy, awe, wonder, happiness. It was it was exciting. So, drawing continuously offers those breakthroughs, epiphanies. Um, you can really track your skill. How it's a journey you can keep track of, actually. What you made yesterday compared to today or a year ago, 5 years ago. So that's cool. Self-reflection. Know thyself is what some wise people say.
That's right. And do you have any of your old drawings still? Did your mom ever keep any?
I burned them
Really?
all of them. Michelangelo did the same right before he died. That's why there's so few Michelangelo, well, comparatively, so few of his drawings still around, because he didn't want there to be a trace of his any hesitancy. All artists, they'll do sketches to figure things out. He had established a mythology about himself during his own lifetime. Il Divino, perfect, no flaws. So he had to hide all the flaws, even though those kinds of drawings and sketches, at least for us, modern modern people, we love the flaws. It's like that discovery. You know, uh, I'm mentioning all this because nearby there was a Michelangelo exhibition recently down in Williamsburg. Somehow this little museum manages to get Michelangelo drawings once every 5 to 10 years. So I
Hmm.
promised myself whenever they do, I'll go there. And it was an exhibition, just a few excellent exhibition of his preparatory drawings for the Sistine ceiling, and it's a special thing when you can get that close in proximity to, yeah, genius. Trying things out, exploring things. It's pretty cool.
That's incredible. So I just to kind of touch back on that story, did you actually like there was a day where you were like, all right, I have to collect them all and I have to get a fire pit of some sort and just eradicate any traces of all those imperfections?
I took them to an active volcano that then was plunged into the sea owing to a tsunami, and so they're gone, Mark. You'll never see them. You'll never see them.
I don't know if I
Aliens
can
came
take
down
that.
and vaporized the island. No, of course my
Uh,
mom still has a collection of them somewhere. They're somewhere. But yeah.
you had me there for a
Sorry.
second. I believed you there when you said
I
that. I was
know.
like, man, I gotta. Okay, I'm gonna have to Google this eventually. Like, what?
I
Which
believe my own
volcano went
story.
into the sea?
I thought the ship goes everywhere.
Well, interesting. Yeah, I still stumble upon whenever I visit my folks the old pages of like the shitty drawings, stick figures, not 3D, not 3D. I never managed to crack that barrier. I stayed 2D for the most part. And
I
tracing,
still believe in you.
I love tracing paper. That was the best.
Yeah. Hey, whatever tool you got, use it. And especially this day and age, lots of new tools being invented. And you know, I- again, I can't stop mentioning Michelangelo, but around his time, fresco is the big thing. He's a sculptor, and then all of a sudden, this little thing called oil painting was starting to pop up, and a ton of the big Italian masters were like, "Oil painting? That's ridiculous. It won't. That'll amount to nothing." And it's the medium almost without rival nowadays. So, and with AI coming around too, and Photoshop 2 decades ago, these are tools that'll just keep pushing the ball wherever it goes.
Yeah, I don't know if AI will ever be able to make something as good as your piece, but
It's kind of you to say, and of course it won't. But I mean, I'm not threatened by it because art is so much more than just a thing that's made in exchange for money. It's an investigation into who you are, just like writing is or music is. That's why it exists. That's why these things exist. They're mirrors for us. They help us see the bigger picture surrounding us. I think we forget this and we often just see the money signs and dollar amounts attached to them. But we all have special, again, ineffable experiences that are hard to describe when we watch a movie or listen to a song. It hits us, and that's the point. AI, I'm sure I've seen stories here and there of some people being floored by what AI has made, but that's all taken from original human source material.
Hmm.
AI hasn't derived its own voice yet. Who knows if it will? Maybe, I don't know. I think with the debate, I think artists there's plenty of artists using it as their, a major uh, they're leaning heavy onto it as a crutch in a way to help them facilitate to ideate things, ideas and such. And then there's a big backlash. I mean, I'm sure you're familiar with the whole debate. Everyone, it's in every field now, AI. But
Oh
on
yeah.
my own personal level, I don't see it as being too. It can lead to anything. It's like, again, it's like the invention of fire or the wheel. That was big and scary when it came around. The printing press was amazing. The story with the printing press, Gutenberg Bibles, beautiful manuscripts distributed to the masses. And then that was great for about 10 years. And then the things that were printed, the biggest sells after the printing press was invented was witch hunting manuals, conspiracy theories. So it's a cycle repeating itself. And that's back then they had the printing press or fire or the wheel to contend with. Now we have AI, something a bit more sophisticated, but I'm optimistic.
I
That's
appreciate
a
that.
tangent for
Yeah,
you.
no, I appreciate it, and I like that that you have that perspective because the people that I notice that are productive in this space, and not in the sense that they just pump out material and pieces, but in the sense that they, um, as you said, use art as an exploration of themselves and the human condition.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of people that I find that have this exact same example or instinct towards AI, where
Mm.
it's a tool like any other, and right now we're in that kind of infant stage where we're kind of just figuring out like what it can do, and it's great in automation and all that, but there's a lot more ground to cover. So this isn't over yet, and it's not going anywhere. So
Exactly.
you might as well make your peace with it.
Exactly. No one unlearned how to make fire. Whenever someone acquired the wheel, they never got rid of it. So AI, it's here. The internet's here. Make your peace with it. That's well put.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's definitely beats trying to kind of slow down this progress. I would understand from like maybe a safetyism perspective of when it gets to politics or geopolitics or anything like that, but
Yeah,
that's a
we
little bit
could learn
different.
from history,
Yeah. Yeah.
but we
Uh,
won't.
yeah, we'll see.
Uh,
Well, we'll see. I think it's just a matter of time at this point.
mm. True, true. But what is time, Mark? We still haven't answered that.
Maybe we'll find out by the end of the show. Maybe we'll know. But in any case, no, I've seen kind of the similar thing as you described, where it's you haven't really seen huge leaps in it. It just kind of does things faster. Like just about every commercial I see, it's always talking about any company that's implementing AI. It's always like, oh, it'll book your travel trip or order stuff on Amazon for you. It's like, okay, but is it gonna give my life meaning? Like tell me like if I'm
Mm.
leading a meaningless life, like what is it that I can do? How do I go about this? Is it gonna be like the movie Her? I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a tremendous
I've
take on
seen
AI.
snippets of it, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah. Yeah, I think you went right for the heart there, meaning. And that's the thing. If you're looking for something to give you meaning, that's the abyss. Surrendering your own ability to create meaning. Kind of the point is to invent meaning for yourself. Um, that's what civilization is. That's what mythology is. It's these attempts and structures of framing the world in a comprehensible way, and the medium of that is creating meaning, figuring things out, figuring out the meaning behind things. It's a little recursive, but that's how we get back to the question, what is time? But it's I think you put that very well. It's an issue about meaning because if you use it just to create everything, then what are you doing? what what's the meaning there? Eh, yes, you were alive and did some. You clicked a couple things, but Not that there has to be a Dostoevsky kind of struggle involved, but
There often
did you
is.
grow? Did you, sorry?
There often is.
There often is, yeah. Makes for great story and drama, but did you grow when you had the AI, when you told the AI to do something and it did something? Did you grow? Or if you, what direction did you end up going? Your trajectory? Are you still in the same place you were when you started working with AI, or have you discovered something new, or just see things differently? There are lots of questions. Um, you just have to be, you have to deal with the uncomfort of being yourself sometimes. And that's where art can really help, or expand your own definition of who you are, meaning. So again, recursive.
Yeah, and it's an interesting way that you framed art as kind of self exploration, because I, in the limited ways that I've interacted with art, or any creative pursuit, um, it's not until weeks later or months later that I look at a piece that I did, or just some kind of project that I had, that I kind of realize what that little capsule of time and who I was in that moment, what that actually meant and why I was creating it. It never felt like it was happening in the moment. Um, and it's this weird process of self discovery, that if you kind of phase out of it, you lose something. At least that's what I felt ever since I kind of stopped nurturing that like creative side. There's something about you that dies, for lack of a better word.
Hmm. Oh, that's fascinating. No, I mean, to your point about, again, how something, having done something days or weeks ago, just how it holds presence still in your mind. You're reflecting back on it, and perhaps it's, help with something, or it was just something you had done, and then you see it differently weeks out. Uh, and then it makes you question certain things, I suppose. So you lost a piece of yourself. Is that what you're saying? Or a potentiality, a potential you, a different path, maybe. You see you've gone one way, and if you had continued with something, you'd be on another path. Is that what you mean? Or,
Something like that. Yeah,
hmm.
I think it's forgetting what, like, that the purpose of that creative spirit is, because I've done a bit of graffiti when I was in high school, like any young man with a marker, eager to make his mark on the bathroom walls. Um,
You bold, bold creative.
yeah. No, I did some canvas pieces. Nothing impressive. It was just like, let's just put things on here and see what happens. Um, and just thinking back to the mindset that I had to it, I think it was too mechanical. It wasn't it it was too intentional, to the point where I was trying to force meaning into it, and I think that's part of
Huh.
why I stopped creating, because it lost its like kind of fun in that way. But it was more like, so to just kind of show like the opposite perspective that you've had, where it's a journey of self discovery in that way. And I've rarely touched on that. Like there's times where I've like done a piece or two, and I think, oh, there's something in there. There's a part of me that's in there. But most of the time, I find it's hard to tap into that occasionally.
Yes. No, that no, actually, you're hitting a couple really big things. Natural things, actually. In one's practice, career, or hobby of drawing or creating in general, whether it's music or writing, poetry, or drawing, uh, you will. There's the natural tendency, naturally, to compare yourself to others, um, across media or within whatever media you're dealing with. And then, so you're asking, why am I doing this? Why am I drawn to this? Or maybe you're not literally asking the question, but there's a sense of it, the feeling. Because that's what a lot of art is driven by, is feeling. And, you'll be damned trying to explain your feelings in detail. You're not supposed to. You feel them. That's what they are, the
Hmm.
feelings. Uh, and then you can respond to them. And especially in one's teenage years, you know, you'll get the feeling, and if you think too much about it, you'll interpret it wrong, or you'll go in not there's a wrong or right way, but you might, based off of your reaction to it, you might go down a more rough path than perhaps the smoother path. You know, feelings are they're interesting. And so that this is when people pick up and drop all sorts of things, especially drawing. I'm not progressing. Or I'm not as good as like, Sally or Shannon, whatever I called her earlier,
Hmm.
or Mike or whoever. And that's the end. That's the death of a lot of people's creative endeavors. Because also in high school, you know, our culture and society, we have high school. You know, you're plugged into the system that plugs you into the rest of society. You know, training for a job and then some sort of service or whatever. And you know, if you're not moving swiftly through that trajectory, then it feels like you're messing up. And then you're seeing others moving through swiftly, good students and whatnot. And
Hmm.
you know, especially as a teenager, all the chemicals inside of you and emotions flying. It's a crazy time. And so yeah, that's when a lot of creative endeavors are snuffed out. But sometimes they are an outlet to release the pressures building in. Like for me, drawing was definitely an escape for me. It served many purposes, but especially in high school, it was an escape. I could wander into, and with the Lord of the Rings and things like that, just the idea of creating your own worlds, I just got lost into that. And movies, drawing movies, inventing my own, just takes you off. And you know, in that sense, it's very healthy. And then, but if you get lost in it, that's when it becomes unhealthy. So I say pick up a pen and start drawing, Mark. You'll never, you'll surprise yourself, especially with having survived teenage years and now in young adulthood. um, you bring a lot of good experience to bat with drawing. That's why I teach a lot of older people as well. People that are retired, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. I've taught people in their 90s how to draw. And I'm all about collapsing walls of resistance and toning down the voice in your head that might say, you can't do it, I can't draw. So you can get rid of that. That takes a little time, but I'm optimistic for you. I can't wait to go to the Toronto Art Museum and see your work there.
I don't know if it'll go that far, but I
I'm ambitious
appreciate.
for you.
Yeah. I know I appreciate the spirit because I'm beginning to learn in my late 20s now that uh, that instinct that is honed in high school for the majority of people. There's very few that are bold and unapologetic, and that I
Yeah.
fondly remember them. But there's always only a handful of them. Maybe their amygdala's formed before everyone else. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but um, or no, it's frontal lobe. Yeah, because that part doesn't develop until you're 25. Amygdala is
But
the
they're all
language
dead
center
now,
of the brain.
Mark. No,
Yeah.
they were too
um,
adventurous.
yeah. But there is a certain strength in having the ability to shut off that doubtful voice because it doesn't just like apply to you in art. It's a general skill to have in life that like regardless of what's going to happen, you are the master of your domain and you have to
Mhm.
keep pushing forward regardless of what anyone says. Otherwise, you're just kind of a slave to the forces around you. But especially in the creative endeavors, I find that that is most important because, as you said, the first instinct is to compare yourself. Like I have
Mhm.
friends that I've tried to have them start their own like either podcast or show or what have you, and they'll
Yeah.
quickly compare it to like the top like number one hit that gets millions of views and whatnot. And I'm like, okay, well that doesn't matter. They had 0 views at one point, and if they can do
Exactly.
it, then anyone else can.
Yeah. No, everyone else should. No. Yeah. No, that's good advice. Because you never know, frankly, especially with all the evidence of just all the silliness that's out there. If that can if that can make it, so so too can one's sincere efforts, you know? And that's what I'm a huge proponent of, sincerity. It's okay to wear your heart on your sleeve sometimes. To pursue a passion, you know, it's scary. Um, and I think that's you mentioned growing up on the internet, right? Just it's ubiquitous. But there's always this. You're always engaged with people. You're always somehow connected, or being seen, or doing the seeing, and so you create your own meta narrative in your mind that frames the world and the internet, and it just so happens often always wrong. Has that negative voice saying you can't draw, you can't do this or that, you shouldn't, and that's just in your head. It's a skill, takes time to tone it down, but when you can, the world starts expanding, and it's not going to go perfect either, but perseverance, perseverance. I mentioned history. So I just love the Renaissance guys because they're classic cases of that. Each they synthesized. They were stealing from each other,
Yeah.
just like artists today, in the right creative way. And they just I think they had the benefit of being able to lock themselves in a room without too many people yapping, except for a pope or a king once in a while. But they did have this time to themselves. Whereas I think with the internet, of course, there's this compulsion to feel like you should be sharing everything you're creating. And then if you're sharing all like your silly sketches and you say something silly about them, I mean you know that's crushing the seeds before they grow. It's silly, you know. Well,
Yeah.
that was a mucky tangent. Sorry.
No, no, but like I said, this is the right space for it. Um, yeah, there's a memory that I have in university. I remember when I was struggling to think of a topic of a paper, and I just kept having this instinct, as you said, this thought that muddies the waters, that it has to be 100% original and it can't have any influence from anything else, and that it has to come from you and your own. And the more that I thought about it, the more I realized, like, okay, well, just about every paper you read, just about every reading you have, there's a huge list of citations that comes afterwards. There's all these
Yeah.
quotes, there's all these things that the authors pull from. And at the end of the day, their work isn't completely original either. Nobody's is. Everybody builds on the person that came before them, and there's a part of you that has to kind of just get over that initial instinct. I mean, it's one thing to like
Mhm.
literally take someone's work and steal it,
Yes,
and
I
yeah,
discourage this.
yeah. But it's another to just take the influences around you and incorporate them into your design.
Yeah. Now, I mean, you have the go-ahead from Picasso to do so. His famous quote, essentially, mediocre artists borrow, great artists steal.
That's right.
And then Newton's. I only achieved what I have because I stood on the shoulders of giants. And then visually, you can think of Michelangelo. I'm gonna bring them up every chance I get. But you have Michelangelo. Just imagine a titanic human figures, energy, gesture, power, dynamicism, and then you have Da Vinci, subtle, delicious, luscious, very introspective. That smokiness, atmospheric. But if you combine the two together, you get Raphael. That's the alchemy there is borrow, take, and mix a bit of your own spirit in there, and you end up with something. It might take a couple iterations, but with time, you end up with something. Just comes about.
Absolutely. Yeah, and not only do you benefit, but the world benefits, because now they get not just to see like option A and B, but now it's a whole other third thing, and
Exactly.
that's how we push the needle forward. Without that, I mean, we don't really have much. There's not really any evolution that happens if it's just we're hoping for singular individuals. Like eventually, like just like The Simpsons, we're gonna run out of ideas. Like we're just gonna be doing reruns.
Nonsense. Yes, I think there's virtue in this idea and notion of pushing the needle forward, always forward, advancing. You have to define what that is, but a progression, an evolution. Um, the Egyptian culture, didn't change for 3,000 years. But that was a very stable society, regimented, So, what are we after? Are we after something very balanced and everlasting? Because the Egyptians offer, uh, they're no longer here, which is part of their downfall is they couldn't change or adapt. But they had a solid run of 3,000 years, and their art and culture inspire so much today, and are the roots of so much as well. So that's, you know, this constant need for change is, it's something we're hung up in our modern age. We love change. Give me something new, and oftentimes the new to really just be outstanding or shocking, it's usually veers into the grotesque direction. I mean, the news is constantly, it's the news. It's not the happiest thing anymore. So that's the danger to constant progress or evolution too, is just you're just reaching to shock people, just to shock people as opposed to synthesizing ideas and, evolving. With science, there's plateaus, fields of
Mm.
study flatline because they're not taking in original ideas. They're kind of spiraling into themselves. That's kind of what the Egyptians did. But yeah, once in a while you do get that crazy gal, crazy man who comes in with new ideas and manages to get some people to follow them. Say, hey, that's a good idea, or I like what they're doing there. I'm gonna put that in my drawing, and then that starts a new spiral, hopefully, in a good direction.
Hopefully, yeah,
Yeah.
that's the hope. And that's interesting that you mentioned academia because I certainly saw that in my time in university. A lot of maintenance of the status quo and
Yep. Money. So that's about money, getting funding and such.
yeah, very little emphasis on fostering original ideas and just the pressures of like the actual people working within these institutions. I never, I'd never even come close with it, before then, and I didn't really have any perspective on it. But as soon as I started talking to some of my professors, I was like,
Mm.
oh, I understand it. This is a system like any other. This is a business. This isn't
Yes,
the like the initial universities where like yeah sure only
exactly.
the rich could afford it, but there like you were getting lectures from some of the smartest people on the planet.
From different cultures without no walls, just say the craziest thing and
Hmm.
synthesize. Yeah. Yeah, that's the time we live in is we had great like the Egyptians, a great system, but these systems that we have now, they're staying on the same path. They're not growing or allowing themselves to be permeated by new ideas just because it's safe to not step on too many toes or to say this in order to get the funding, say what the people with money want to hear, and that's usually the the equation for disaster. And that's hence our crazy times. Our institutions, arts, science, all of it right now, they've stopped. They just, yeah, they're a little ossified, and that's what happens. They just aren't exercising enough. So right now, there's shocks to the system. Our current times, if
Yeah, and
that makes sense.
it's happening in the art world too. I actually I
Oh.
interviewed an artist who told me that he was classically trained, went to university for it or college, what have you, um,
Mm.
and he mentioned that his for his thesis, so before graduating, he was getting a lot of push from his mentor to work in abstract paintings, and
Mhm.
he was not a fan of that, even though he'd learned all the theory, color theory, mixing all the different materials and art history and whatnot, and had the whole shebang, had the whole full art stack.
Yeah.
Um, Even with all of that uh, inspiration to draw from to make something new, he was still being pushed to do this. So he's like, screw that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take screenshots of old video games and paint them with all the techniques and all the skills and everything that I've learned so
Mhm.
masterfully in
Yeah.
gouache, I think he called it.
Oh, gouache. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. Yeah.
and the paintings come out like as incredible like just pieces because it hits you with a wave of nostalgia if you grow up on some of those games,
Mm.
and yet if you the closer that you look, you see his actual technique, and it's like, oh, this is someone that decided to take all of those feelings of frustration of being forced to like work within these boundaries, work within this canvas and this style, and take it to something different, and now he makes these wonderful pieces.
Hey, that's wonderful that he's still creating. I mean, I know so many people who, yeah, kind of got that advice from the professor and pursued it and then just collapsed, you know, kind of kudos to your friend for persevering. That's uh that's awesome. And yeah, that's interesting using the highly polished skill set, to approach, you know, the lighter subject matter of video games, but also the nostalgic kind of early beginnings of things. That's pretty cool. What's his name?
His name is Artist Riker.
Ar-
I think he was on here about 3 or 4 episodes ago.
Okay, I'll look into that.
Yeah, interesting guy. I really like his stuff. And it's as you said, yeah, it's great that he was able to completely reject that idea and move on with his own thing. Part of it was like he wanted to just show the middle finger to the the institutions. He's like, well,
Yeah,
this is not what I'm here for. I'm here to explore myself and see what I can do. And he decided to do that. And I don't know if he's making a living yet, but he sells his prints for a decent enough price, I think, to eventually start actually being able to live off it, which is the dream, I'd imagine.
yeah. No, that's it is. Yeah, it's self-sustaining. That's brilliant. Freedom. It's it's a terrible thing to have a boss, you know. Am I
Don't
allowed
get
to
me
say that
started.
on here?
Don't get me started.
But yeah, no, but it is yeah, it's that's the great thing about the art world. It's everywhere and it's very silly when you get to like a certain sides of it. In all directions, it gets pretty silly, but again, there are some pretty sincere, amazing people, plenty of them in the art world, wherever you go, and to connect with them, whether they're artists or organizers, gallerists, even patrons and collectors, or just or a collector buying something online, a poster, a print. That's beautiful. That's the connecting part. Uh, it's very affirming, that kind of connection with people. They support your art, but then they have a conversation. They'll tell you something you've never seen in your art,
Hmm.
and yeah, that adds to meaning in a very positive way, as opposed to creating meaning by setting up boundaries. Telling someone what they can and can't create, and then why they can't create that, and da 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 da. That creates a species of meaning, but as well when it's collaborative. You create something, and then the feedback you get, and if it's positive or just something you weren't expecting, that leads to new ideas, new meanings and interpretations. It's phenomenal. That's life having fun with itself. And I think that's what it's all about, in a way. In a book, a guy once described the universe as a playful puppy, and I think that's a great way to see it at times. Other times, you know.
Interesting. And what was that passing the threshold like for you? When did you first realize that, oh, I could actually do this for a living? This is something that I could actually see myself living sustainably on.
Hmm. Um, there's a couple. It's not. I think for me, it was steps, kind of steps going upwards, not necessarily like a big jump. Um, Through school, yeah, I went to college, VCU, Virginia Commonwealth University. They have an excellent art program there. So yeah, shout out to VCU. And so in that program, you learn skills to being an artist. And the program I was in was geared. They called it communication arts, but it wasn't like a typical communications program. It was just the name, but in the art school. But it was kind of going through an identity shift as well. So what really attracted me to that program was a very traditional foundation an approach to art, to drawing, very classical approach, as well as some contemporary stuff, and then also photography and Photoshop, da 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 da. But I've always loved drawing what I draw, architecture, map-like things. So that's always been with me. But I fine-tuned it through university, Um, so there's some professors that I endlessly appreciate and love for their help, and then some jerks that didn't know anything. But that's experience. But through that college experience, I got a couple awards and scholarships, and then some slow and steady trickling of encouragement. Like people, the department acquired a piece of mine, and then I entered a couple scholarship programs, competitions outside of school that had a monetary reward. So that was pretty affirming. And then I exhibited a piece through one of those programs in New York, and then someone bought it. So my first collector, as it were, and I've maintained a relationship with him. He was an architect for the city of New York forever.
Oh
So,
wow.
now I'm connecting to a city that I absolutely love and revere and have spent a lot of time lived in for a bit. Um, so that, it's these little doors that start to open to larger corridors and then stairs going up, and you can't quite see how the direction they're going, but just elevation is slight, there's an upward trajectory. Um, and sometimes it's a very steep upward trajectory. Sometimes it plateaus. Up, 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 up. So I followed the breadcrumb path, I guess you could say, and the crumbs started getting bigger as I stayed on the path longer. There were times when there weren't so many breadcrumbs, and then there's times when there was lots of breadcrumbs. But yeah, it's kind of spooky how the universe works at times. As long as you're creating and putting your work out there in some manner, you don't have to be in the hamster wheel constantly turning things out like that. But as long as you're doing something, your intent, I should say, as long as you're serious about it, things happen. Things happen. Um, so yeah, and then with the internet, that just connects you to the wider world. And I've had a few pieces of mine, garner quite a good, healthy amount of attention, which then drove. I was introduced to the power of print sales online a year or so after school, which convinced me if I can keep this going as regards prints, this is powerful. This is amazing. Um, and then generally, people have been very encouraging of my work from all different sides and places. So I feel like I'm doing something very positive for the world, in the world, around the world. So it's very life affirming, reaffirming.
I'd say so. I'd say so. That
Thanks.
must be a
I
hell of a.
talk way too much.
No, I this is what the show's about. This is what I want to do. So you're in the right space for it. Don't never feel bad for it. If there's any other
I just
place
want to draw
to speak.
pictures. I just give you pictures.
Well, no, because the other thing, it's like the show's kind of oxymoronic in that sense because most of the artists that I've talked to, very shy, very introverted, do not want to open up, and they don't really do these interviews often. And I totally get it. I understand the instinct. I get it.
Hmm.
But anytime one is able to open up, I no, this is what we're here for.
I'm spilling all the beans.
Good, rightfully so. We're open sourcing art. We're releasing the breadcrumbs, as you called it, out there.
Mm. Oh
Um,
yeah, I should have gone with like cookie crumbs. I have a sweet tusk. It's not a tooth, it's a tusk. See, I'm telling you too much again. It's terrible.
all part of the process. But that is interesting. That how you label that progression, that it just kind of comes and goes, but as long as you keep putting yourself out there and getting the right feedback that's egging you on to keep going, it'll eventually be able to sustain you one way or another. And that must be a hell of a liberating feeling, having to know that you'll never have to wait tables or wash dishes ever again.
Yeah, well, it does require honesty too. Like you say, I'm going to be an artist, or whatever. You're gonna say whatever you want to say, but you have to be honest with yourself throughout the journey, as it were. What do I mean by that? You have to make the work. You have to make the time to make the work, and a lot of people. It's great now. There's a lot of art critics and artists that share the dark side of their experience, and so listening to them is really helpful. Just the thing that'll kill you or just corrupt your endeavor entirely is jealousy. And then again, comparing yourself, just like in anything, but especially as a creative person, that's immediate death. Or, that's just going to throw you right into a swamp for a day if you start going down the, oh, look at them doing that, and why not me? Or, oh, woe is me kind of thing. And that for your ego, that's wonderful to just feel miserable for a time. But that doesn't get you anywhere. So you have to be honest with yourself. I chose to be an artist, and it's up to me how it will go. Uh, other people, by all means, go into a white collar or blue collar career. There's architecture there to, for businesses to get you to succeed, a hierarchy for you to ascend through. That's the point, is to, give people jobs and ascend, in theory, and, to drive a society and civilization. But that's on the flip side, that that leads to Egypt. You just
Hmm.
that will lead to a plateau of things. That's why the arts are there. It's to stir things up or to be very introspective for those, it's to the full range is on the arts, which means the full range is in the arts. There's going to be great times and there's going to be interesting times. And you just trust in the process. It sounds crazy, but that's what a lot of the people I looked up to, artist wise, growing up and even today, they all say trust in the work, do the work. And that sounds crazy at first. I followed that. I've had some down times too. Got in my own head a few for a spell. It was dark. Got out of it, and yeah, it's in the work. It's your best friend, and at times it can be an enemy, or but then you reconcile, and then you're sprinting together. Um, I'm maybe another time or in another book I'll elaborate more on that. But Chuck Close, an artist that I really admire, master of detail and invention, he that was his constant refrain was trust in the work, just just do. And I think he did so with sincerity. He wasn't comparing himself to anyone. He was just making for himself, and he had a wonderful career, beautiful works.
What are the
And that
odds?
goes for so many other artists as well.
Yeah, what are the odds? He followed his passion and he
Yeah,
he becomes he becomes self-actualized.
yeah, 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 exactly. The spooky thing for me too is I've always drawn places, far away and imagined and real. And through my career as an artist, I've gone to almost all those places now. So there is a kind of self-actualizing element in pictures. Spooky thing too with the cave paintings, that's what they conjecture about them, is that some of these paintings, especially the hunts, perhaps they were reenactments for successful hunts, kind of, you know, inspiring, or kind of prayer or a ritual just to, hey, let's manifest this good hunt, guys. Let's paint it everywhere, kind of way. So that's one way to look at things. Never underestimate cave paintings. That's my point. So
Propaganda for
you're
the soul.
sorry?
Propaganda for the soul.
Yeah, well, like your little period of spray painting in high school all over things. That's cave painting right there.
Oh yeah. Modern
Yeah.
day.
Yeah, no, you channeled centuries, millennia. That's good stuff. That's good stuff.
Yeah, no, it's interesting how you mentioned that the 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 artist there that you quoted there about rejecting that negative instinct, because Rick Rubin said something similar to the point of that every piece of art, any creative endeavor that you have should be a diary entry to yourself first and foremost. Like that's it. That it has to be something that you make for yourself and for your own enjoyment first and foremost. Because the moment that you like include the audience in it in any way, not in any way, but in the way that you're perceiving what it would look like from their perspective instead of your own, and taking that into more weight than your own actual perspective.
It's a
That's what
balance,
kills
yes.
it.
The weight, that's a good point there. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
no, it just it reminded me of that exact quote, and that's, I mean, when we started recording today, that's basically what I said to you, because I've realized that that perspective is key. Like, as much as I appreciate all the people listening, hey, grateful for it. Please, I do love having an audience, but
You guys are
they're
great.
yeah, but that is not who I have in mind when I sit down and have these conversations. And getting into that perspective more and more, not looking at the numbers, that's helped me a lot, especially in this space, to just kind of keep going and not pushing boundaries, but just kind of exploring and seeing what can happen.
No, I think you should be even more selfish. No. I mean, you said I was 12 or 13, in terms of talks, something like that?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Um,
Well, and for this show, I have an independent show that I do where I think I'm on the 34th episode. But yeah,
oh,
so
so you're stealing everyone's secrets. Well done. Well done. You're prolific.
I try. I try.
Yeah, no, that's yeah. Of course, there's, even in the art world, if you're on the commercial side, yeah, of course, you're being paid to engage a certain audience to sell something, and that's the culture and society we live in. I don't poo-poo that at all. I mean, use your powers for good. Try to. But I understand you have a family or yourself to feed, and I mean, when I started out, little gigs that I was doing, little commissions I did, especially in this area, lots of fast-growing community in my old parents' neighborhood. Realtors, housing going up, and a gift realtors would love to give to people buying a house is a drawing of the house. So I did a lot of those starting out, and honed the skill. I love drawing houses and art buildings, of course. But yeah, I mean, of course, there's a time and place. If you got to make your bread, pay for your bread, and I wouldn't ever get in anyone's way of doing that if they're, you know, virtuous and not nefarious. But yeah, on the other side is, yeah, if you're creating art, create it for yourself, and yeah, that's the point. You're going into yourself. Good stuff. Very Freudian, very Jungian, very hero's journey again. Can't get away from that stuff. It's delicious.
Yeah, you don't have to go all the way Edward Bernays, but
No.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, he was a master class. I can't believe that I didn't learn about him and his exploits until I got to university. It was stunning in a way, because I looked back, like, through the that frame of now having understood him, to all the ads and everything that I grew up watching, all the marketing, all these ideas that were sold, whether it's through culture or TV or what have you,
Yes.
and just how manipulative that could be. Because I was sold on the idea that the university was the place to be for academics, the place where you could push boundaries and have this exploration. And when I got there, it was not at all
Mm.
what I came to expect. A lot of the partying, sure, I saw a lot
Yeah.
of that, um, but it came off less as a pantheon or a celebration of knowledge, and more of a college movie, essentially.
That's really well put. It became the thing that used to spoof it.
That's right.
That's good. That's the other thing. Kind of, you can be with having a boss, having to create work or something artsy, creative for commercial uh, indulgence. You can be artful about it too, and that's some of the greatest, some great commercials and many other products. Fabulous because they offer and are sincere, but provide depth and a connection to deeper culture. And so, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's some designers that are just brilliant. they're artists in their own right. Of course they are. Um, yeah, and branding, I mean, it's a silly thing, but when I mean, Mac is the greatest example, and that's a cult. I'm on a Mac right now.
Oh yeah.
I'm part of the cult. But it's beautiful, but at the same time, perfectly nefarious. So I'm still working out those emotions.
It's a necessary evil because without it we
Hmm.
wouldn't be able to sit here and use all this fancy tech and all these great things. Consumerism is needed one way or another. We need it to help push the boundary. It pushes boundaries within certain boundaries, but we need that active force one way or
Yeah,
another.
that's the you know, a beautiful tangent, but yeah, that's actually a term that very I have an allergy to. I have no allergies except to this. But the word consumer, I'd rather citizen or friend or person, but the word consumer, like, don't get me wrong, all for the capitalist economic system done the most good, especially when it's done with moderation and fair constraints and
Hmm.
not too crazy in any direction. It leads, yeah, brings out the best of Western society. Moderation. But yeah, that's what we shifted to though, was this consumer mentality. And that's us just growing obese in every wrong direction, I think. The values of government, civic responsibility, that's another word. When you're a consumer, you're not really responsible. There's like responsible consumers now, but responsibility is only it's a new concept introduced to consumerism.
Hmm.
Perhaps too late, who knows? But yeah. Anywho, that's a whole other tangent. But consumerism, yeah, it's interesting. Interesting.
It is the word of the day these days because I'll find myself going on YouTube sometimes and just to see what's going on like in the quote unquote mainstream world. I'll go on the trending timeline and
Mhm.
I am both shocked and also not really at what gets the higher clicks. And as you said before, the news kind of operates in the same way that it's just shock
Mhm.
factor after shock factor, and yet I still find that that dynamic. There's always, I mean, just like anything in nature or even humanity, for every force going in one direction, there's a force going in the other direction. Maybe not as strong
Yes.
just yet, but eventually it does happen. And the counterexample to YouTube, I actually have a mutual account that I follow that created this version of YouTube where it was not based on an algorithm, but on user input. So people could take clips of interesting videos and submit it as their daily submission. And you're given 3 tokens to vote on whichever video you find most interesting. And so that
Interesting. Hmm.
way, it works on a voting system and not just simply based on views or ad revenue or what any algorithm is telling you. It's just purely based on a number. So the goal is to have the most interesting video of the day because then it gets sent out in a newsletter at the end of the day so that everyone gets to see your pick. And it essentially had, or still has, a community of people that are dedicated to just looking at the most interesting content on YouTube that may have 1 million views, may have 100 views, what have you. As long as it's
Mhm.
interesting and thought provoking, that's what people want to see. And the moment that I started using that service instead of YouTube, I was like, oh, there is a strength in curation that you don't get from giving yourself over to some centrifugal, mysterious force that is made somewhere in a basement by people that will
Mm.
never meet you and don't care about you. Whereas you have this community of people that actually they want to curate their experience in that way, and it makes a huge difference.
So you're describing what a university was originally.
Yeah, I guess I am, but I have noticed that there are shifts in all these different
Yeah.
areas, whether it's in tech or otherwise, of people wanting to have um, something that is not beholden to the idea of the consumerist, as we said.
Yes, yeah. The way the algorithm has become, it's like a possessed spirit of the consumer, or it's a yeah. See, that's that community, this alternative YouTube. That is sort of people reading seeing the plateau occurring, and then branching off in towards the sunlight in a healthier direction. And hopefully the fruit or leaves on that branch bear sweeter fruits, you know? Likely will. Um, at least the people it's cultivating, well, they'll be they'll be good morsels, as it were.
Yeah, I think generally that's where the digital age is kind of headed, just because there's a certain amount of burnout that the human brain can handle, and once you've seen your fifth hundredth TikTok for the day, you're you're kind of brain dead at that point. And I figure if you do that enough times, you're gonna want to look out for something that actually has substance, or at least like more substance than what you were watching, because it's still digital media. It's still in the same format and everything. It's not a pilgrimage that you make. You can just click it on your
Mm,
TV as you're making your grilled cheese or what have you. um,
yeah.
it's still in that same context, but at least you're not getting fed uh, recommendations of people that you'll never meet. Now you actually get to curate and choose a more bespoke experience, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, you're literally inviting these videos into your house, your most sacred spot, you know? You would never do that with a stranger off the street. Who knows? But you look like a shady individual. No, no, no. Uh, yeah, so why should the content you bring into your brain, be, you know, not the best? It's funny you mentioned TikTok because a day or two ago, I thought, I didn't have TikTok. I downloaded it just to see and to post a couple things, just to, trying to grow, trying to see new things.
Hmm.
And it was intense. Like, you helped me set this up this evening. But TikTok was just a whole other, it was like a train coming through the screen. It was overwhelming. I really, I mean, it's great. I've seen like through other social media sites things coming from TikTok, educational stuff. I know there's a lot of teachers that use it,
Hmm.
and that's just where most the yeah, a lot more younger people are on TikTok. So that's where they are. So that's where you got to go. And there's a beautiful trade-off of good information occurring there as well. But yeah, there's a lot of it's it's pretty swampy.
Oh yeah,
it's
slop.
it's
We call it slop.
slop. There you go. But it's like visiting another town or city, just seeing what they're up to, what's the culture like, and I don't need to go back. It was nice to see once or twice, but yeah, I don't know if I'll keep that account for long. But yeah.
Yeah, it's certainly essentially cocaine for the brain. It and that's putting it lightly. Um, my only aversion to it is just it's the ties that app has to geopolitical issues, especially with China.
Yeah,
That's really
that
my
was my
main concern.
reservation for the
Yeah.
longest time.
And I
Yeah.
understand, like, the U.S. government, like, I'm sure they have it dialed in on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and whatnot. They're doing the same thing. It's one thing if your neighbor does it. It's another thing if someone from a completely other nation
Yeah.
is related with that, especially if they follow like a completely separate ideology. That's it's a little bit of a red flag.
Well, that's the thing. You hope with art that it bridges gaps and divides of ideology and geopolitics, and these apps, those are the seas you have to sail through to get to the other shore that you're trying to bridge to. Uh, and yeah, there can be stormy. There might be some pirates, literal pirates in there too. And yeah, it's Odysseus. The sirens call, or the Isle of the Lotus Eaters. We've always had these crazy situations in our stories and in real life, and you just gotta go into it, see what happens. I don't think my tenure on the TikTok sea will last very long. Like you said with the geopolitic um, issue, that was my approach for a long time. It still is, but I I understand. It was also maneuvering of the American platforms, to kind of prevent a competitor from entering the space as well. Just kind of propagandizing against it,
Hmm.
uh, and adapting it because I understand the reels and everything that really comes from a more TikTok-y model. So on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, they're all breeding with each other. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Anywho,
There's actually a funny story about the man that created the infinite scroll feature that now all the apps have. He I think I don't remember if his name is Tristan Harris, but he's part of an organization that Tristan Harris is a part of. I think it's called the Center for Humane Technology. He's a
hmm.
part of it now, but before he used to be an engineer in Silicon Valley. And this gentleman, when he just became frustrated with like flipping through pages all the time and having to go to the next page and scroll down. He's like, why don't they just have it so that it's an infinite scroll and the next post just loads so that you don't have to deal with just, going back and forth with all these pages. And so he went to all the major companies, Facebook, Instagram, what have you, and told them about this feature and that they should incorporate it. It's very user friendly. It allows you to navigate through all your options really easily. And it sounds great, in theory. And now seeing it what it's become, and that he's partly responsible for that, he's now joined, I guess, the opposing side to it. He's like, okay, we need to create technology that's more humane and
Yeah.
has more consideration for the human brain than what I did all those years ago. Because now, like, now we're living in it.
I applaud him for, they say the road to hell's paved with the best of intentions, right?
Mm,
The scroll to hell, I guess.
yeah.
But he saw what he did and now wants to be a force against that downward trend. I applaud that. People can change. I've seen I've seen that, and it's worth holding out, letting people, you know, recognize their mistakes and then healing from it, and then becoming a force, to get things going in the other way. Um, yeah, otherwise you're just shouting matches. So that's another tangent. That's a whole other, another tangent. How many tangents are we at now?
Not
50?
enough at this point. The whole
Oh.
show is made of tangents. That's all what it's here for.
Mm.
Funny
Yeah,
enough,
that's
actually, like growing up, I was spoke too much in class, and always got chastised for it. And now I'm in a position where I can actually somewhat make a living off of off of monetizing that. So hey, look, I'm all for tangents. You're talking to the right guy here.
Speaking of no, perfect, perfect. I love mazes and labyrinths, so I'm gonna tangent around every corner, into unknown corners, corners within corners. But no, maybe no. I just the Inquisition. Maybe that's what you were doing in a past life. Just oh, well, sorry,
Maybe.
Turquemada, right?
Who
No.
knows? Who knows? Um,
But you're learning. You learn from those mistakes, and now you're inquiring in a more positive direction. Building bridges. Building bridges.
yeah, I learned to interrupt less and let people talk more. It's far more interesting. Which I actually got from a Dale Carnegie book.
Oh yeah.
One of easily one of my favorite Americans throughout all history. It's incredible what he was able to accomplish in like during the Great Depression. People would travel from all over just to hear him speak on how to communicate effectively with other people and the way that he was able to tap into their psychology. But his main takeaway that I've always just remembered is that at the end of the day, people love to hear themselves talk, and there's nothing wrong with
Mm.
that. That's just a purely human uh, way of functioning. That's just how we operate.
Oh
And
yeah.
if you're curious enough about people and you let them talk and have like an actual moment where they can express their thoughts without interruption, there is so much to be gained there. And that's why I find doing this series so interesting, because I don't interact with artists on a daily basis. I don't know what their lives are like. I have no idea. I have no frame of
You don't know
reference.
if they have legs or arms
That's
or
right. I just see the upper portion. That's it.
no. It's yeah. They're crazy creatures. Artists. Some of them are rather vampiric. Others shed and all sorts of things. And some of them are doing all right.
Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic. the creatives. It very easy to dismiss for being crazy or having outrageous ideas, but ultimately those are the people that push the boundaries. And whether or not artists like to think of themselves as that's the position that they inhabit one way or another.
Yeah. It's an alternative to the, plug and chug, you know, dress up, play student, play businessman, die. uh, yeah, it's the quirk of the system, I guess, the arts. It's supposed to be where the some very intelligent, thoughtful people go, and where perfectly insane, mad, ridiculous people go. And the point is for them to bump into each other and just see what happens. Yeah, it's a space for reinvention. I mean, that's why every totalitarian regime, one of the first things they tried to get under control was the arts, the visual of the culture, and that way you can make the mold and then just press everyone into that, which you know, not good. Or again, if you're an Egyptian, fantastic.
Yeah, so Soviet cinema is something to behold. I watched it a lot growing up as a kid, but
Oh
at the end of the
yes.
day, it does hit a wall eventually where certain themes of freedom are you can tell that they were really drawing back on that.
Yes. Oh, fantastic. Oh, that's a great tangent to go down Soviet film. Oh, in HBO, they have all the what's his name? The War and Peace cycle that the Soviet Union made. Just phenomenal in terms of epic scale. Just yeah. There's a lot you can do in a really suffocating society creatively when the government gives you the backing and green light. Anywho, oh yeah, what's his name? Um, Tarkovsky? I'm butchering the name.
Is he an
Uh,
author or?
no, the director, contemporary, like the Soviet Kubrick,
Oh yes,
essentially.
yeah, Andrei Tarkovsky. Yes.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I mean, those are some of the most beautiful films ever. Very thoughtful. Very, yeah, beyond thoughtful. Oh, the names.
Stalker.
Uh,
Stalker is his most famous one.
Stalker. Stalker. I'm thinking of the Icon Painter film. The name just escapes my brain. That was beautiful. But Stalker. Yeah, I don't know if I've seen that, but yeah, good stuff. And what is it Solaris? He did the. There was a George Clooney remake a number
Yep,
of years ago.
Solaris. Yep, that's one of his
Yeah,
pieces.
great sci-fi pick. But yeah, yeah. Oh no, there's some dangerous tangents there. I mean, the Soviet Union, of course. I had a professor with some dark humor, and the internet picks up on dark humor too easily and too well. But like when you're comparing totalitarian regimes with each other, Germany had a very good sense of design. Most
Oh
unfortunate
yes.
how good it was. But
Oh yes.
yeah, I it's I mean, from an architectural perspective, it's inevitable. Someone who loves architectural history, you'll run into Speer, the architect. I'm going to be the first person to mention Hitler in the conversation, so I automatically
By all
lose.
means. By all,
That's
we are
Ulysses.
we do not censor. We have no topics that are off limits. So by all means.
That's good. Good free discourse. But yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, like again, not censoring anything, just taking in all different cultures. Their voice. Voice is not just an auditory, you know, reflex. Voice is also the fabric of what people build. Architecture is a voice. It's music. It's frozen music, as a poet once put that I've latched
Mm.
onto. But the music these totalitarian regimes were playing, very inspiring, very powerful, but perfectly dreadful in result. But yeah, it's crazy. But yeah,
The monuments are beautiful, but the apartment blocks not so much.
exactly. Not where they. I mean, I love domes. I'm a big dome guy, and Speer, he had some ideas about domes, beautiful domes. I am not condoning Speer at all, by the way.
Of course,
Just
that's
dark
implicit.
humor for the internet. There you go.
Yeah, like
Um,
I love brutalism. Easily one of my favorite styles.
oh yeah, yeah. Oh, I mean, gosh, it's coming. It's having its moment, isn't it? People are kind of well. There's a whole movie called The Brutalist, but
Mm,
people are reviewing it. Kind of, there's disasters, but there's some marvelous masterpieces, and the Soviets too. Some excellent brutalist works, and in Mexico as well.
mm.
They're masters of concrete, I must say. Excuse me. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a wonderful style, but as you said, like there's a limit to that creativity when you have the state watching over your every move there, and it's no surprise that America wound up being the cultural capital of the planet. Like I'll find myself just being absolutely amazed at the fact that when you slow down and think about it, I mean, you have every major social media company, every major Hollywood production is, at least it starts there and is funded there. They shoot all over the world, but that's where it began. And the slew of writers and poets and musicians, there is no one country on earth that could even compare to the amount of creative output that the United States has had, the influence that it's had on everyone else. I mean, up here in Canada, we see your news half the time because our news is just too boring. There's not much going on up here. So
No, I was watching the live stream of that maple tree relinquishing its sap. It was beautiful. It was amazing. It was what a flow. No. Uh, yeah, well, that's for everything we get wrong, you know, uh, and you can look at the whole history of the country too, but the accomplishment is a country the size, it spans a continent, east to west, like Canada, but over a variety of different geographies that a lot of different cultures grew out of. And so there's this the welcoming spirit that was here for so long, it was the place of mixing, and that's a good thing. That blending and integration, synthesizing, it goes back to my Michelangelo mixing with Da Vinci gets your Raphael.
mm,
Exquisite beauty. And if you're doing that not only in painting, but architecture, cuisine, poetry, music, uh, even in business, different approaches. The federal system that we have, each state is a testing kit for democracy, as it were. Lots of 50 different kinds of democracies being practiced in the country.
51.
50, yes. You had your chance. It's still open. No. Oh, that's so silly. But gosh. Um, yeah, I mean that's East Coast is totally very different than the West Coast. South is different from the North, the Midwest, da 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 da. And so all these cultures, yeah, I mean you said it. You see the result. It just produces and creates just remarkable people. And other countries have had this too. I mean, again, talking about history, the U.S. I think has been, you know, uh, when our founding fathers kind of met up, there wasn't such a meeting of great minds like that. Just people ready to tear apart from their home empire country, England, the
Hmm.
United Kingdom, break away. But they were motivated by some of the most highest ideals, and their eloquence is just unsurpassed. And they're all living at the same time, managing to meet together and then compromising. I mean, they were vastly opposed to each other, but they compromised. Incredible. I think that's part of America's strength is this. We once held compromise as a core ideal, Yeah, scream and yell at me. I'm going to do the same, but by the end of the day, we're going to have a deal. I'll cut you a deal, or we're going to make this work for both of us. And that was our magic. That's under stress right now. We're really pushing the buttons on that. But I think we had lots of countries have this. Florence, Renaissance Florence, they had
Hmm.
somehow these great minds were all together. in this little period of time. Florence, there's more to go into about that, but they were there and they produced things that inspired, help ignite Western culture, essentially, reignite it, the Renaissance. But the US has had that kind of period of inspiration longer than I think most places. Florence had it for like two on and off periods for about 30 years each. The US has had it for 100 plus years now. Pretty amazing. France has had its come and go moments. England too. The Dutch, China. Well, China was a big one for centuries. Just China, Egypt too. Yeah. I don't want to cover the whole globe, Canada especially, but it's pretty cool. I like. I'm an optimist, so I'm holding out for that creative spirit to persevere in the country. So thanks for recognizing that.
No, it's there's no cost that you can put on that of fostering an environment where the creative spirit acts as a driving force for invention of whether it's in new ideas or technologies or what have you. Having that um, environment, it's not a nice to have, and it's not something that um, is just a check mark. It's an absolute necessity. Without it, the whole thing fails. Everything stagnates, and nothing ever advances, and then you end up being a shell of yourself. And it's a shame to see any move go in that direction. And these days, you kind of see it here and there with different stories and different avenues. But uh, yeah, I especially as I've gotten older and I've realized like the experience that my ancestors had living
Mm.
under Soviet rule, or even friends
Oh,
that have
yours.
exactly, um, or friends that have come from those countries, and
Yes.
comparing that difference to what we have here, it is night and day is not even the right word for it, but um, it really puts it into frame just how valuable it is to foster that. And any action that anyone takes towards creating that
Mm.
kind of environment or participating in it, as we said earlier, there's an angle of self-actualization that goes into it, unlike any other pursuit that you can have.
Yeah. I mean, it's a responsibility to safeguard it for yourself and others as well, which is what I think we're struggling with. None of us. It's the very last of the greatest generation is, they're in their mid to late 90s, early to late 90s now. And that was when our current age was forged, was with their blood and perseverance and belief in something bigger. And that's kind of the curse of growing up in the best of times. We don't know what the worst of times were. So we don't know if we're marching ourselves into it. Or we do because we wrote all about it, but we're choosing to ignore that. So we're eating our own tail, or plug in whatever idiom you want. It's yeah. It's a transitory period we're in. I think we're lucky in that big systems are starting to fail. They just got old and need an oil change, as it were. So we get to be the generations that do that change, hopefully in a positive trend. Um, I think there is so many of us that really not march, but walk alongside of what you were just describing. Just the belief and faith in, like, yeah, each individual is capable of creative things, pushing pushing things forward. But what's most important is fostering a community or a civilization that values that and insists upon it, as opposed to putting up walls and chasing 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 things in circles, just petty ambitions, that don't lead to that kind of coalescing and exchange of ideas. Yeah, we're in an age of ego, the consumer is a god and should be satisfied by whatever means, and let's sacrifice everything to that. for the sake of making money, and that's a misplaced value, misplaced judgment there. Uh, so-
Yeah, but no, I share your optimism in that, because even though that certainly is a reality of the kind of time that we live in, at least here in the West, um,
mm-hmm.
the breaking of all these systems. For one, I find it entertaining. I gain nothing but endless laughs, whether it's
Your name is Middle Nero, and I see you holding your fiddle. No, Niddle,
it
that's a new one. Sorry.
it gives me nothing but joy to see these things collapse, because we live in the digital age where everything is recorded. So every scandal, every soundbite, every news story, or any new mistake, it just gets magnified times 1,000, and people make memes of it, and they put auto tune to it, and they make clips of it, and it is by far one of the most entertaining things about living in this day and age, is that whenever you see these systems kind of um, rear their ugly heads, show themselves for what they actually are. Uh, it gives me nothing but endless joy to see that and to poke fun of it. And it also reminds me that, like, all these things, all these institutions and everything that is around us that used to be a monolith in our parents' generation. You only had the TV and you only had 14
Mm.
channels or what have you. If you could afford having a TV, or you grew up with a radio or what have you, however far back you want to go. Um, but now we live in an age where those things are no longer in control, and you're free to choose what kind of world you want to live in. And there's a dangerous part to it, sure, sure. But on the other side of that, it gives you the freedom to openly mock all these things, so long as you live in a country that doesn't have the death penalty for that kind of thing. But
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
it reminds you that all these it's like that old Steve Jobs quote that he said in an interview once, that all these things that we call life that are all around us, they were invented by people that are not smarter than yourself. Not to a large enough degree for it to be some kind of mystifying thing. These are just
Right,
ideas that were created by
right.
people like you and me, and they're not invincible.
Well, they are if they knew how to draw and sketch their ideas and then hand it off to someone to make it. Yes, but no, no. Yeah. Well, that's to your point about just being able to laugh at the hypocrisy of these institutions, you know, kind of the Big Brother or 1984, the Ministry of Truth actually is all about torture. And, that's what a lot of our institutions are eating themselves. They're folding on their responsibility. But I think that's a trap as well, just laughing and ha 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 ha, look at them, silly. Like, it's good to point those things out, but I think a lot of people do get stuck in the mode of just pointing their finger, ha 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 ha, as opposed to coalescing into, okay, this thing is eating itself, it's silly, let's tear it down. What do we propose to build in its stead, though?
Hmm.
That's where I think we're having the hiccups, is where a lot of us agree that we got to change things, but we're very adamant. Well, I think you have a mix of people that are adamant about what they want to put into place, and then people that are just adamant about not letting those people get their way or have any ideas. And that's kind of the mess we're in, because we just have lost the art of compromise. Um, and how do we get that back? I think it's a process, a slow process of readjusting our values again, like de-emphasizing this notion of a consumer, rather place the emphasis on the citizen, and then that creates an investment in not just businesses, but the actual community that runs the community, the whole government. Instead of being allergic to a government isn't this alien body that came from outer space running things. It's people we elected amongst our peers. We've
Hmm.
allowed them to become corrupted, or people in power have changed the rules to keep themselves in. That's inevitable. We've let them do that just because it benefited, generations. You know, so we're just kind of playing a waiting game in a in a respect. Just waiting for the old people to die. No. Uh, uh, yeah, it boils down to responsibility. Just seeing the writing on the wall, like with the U.S., our leadership, they're all ancient and stuck in this dichotomy of us versus them. And yeah, one side has done a lot to erode freedoms and this and that, but you know, the I b- you just got to build bridges, you know, the virtue like the US, why I'm optimistic is we had a civil war where we were killing each other by the hundreds of thousands, and one side it was because one side had slaves that were an abominable crime that they couldn't let go. But the North won, the side that was in the right, they won, and they didn't behead everyone.
Hmm.
Every other time in history when the winning side wins, especially on a big idea like, slavery was almost a religious thing.
Hmm.
And normally in history, the losers get their heads chopped off. The winning side, Grant and Lincoln, they did not chop anyone's heads off, which is amazing. And so we have that old history still kind of festering, where the losing side got to. And I'm from Virginia, capital of the South once upon a time. Uh, the education I went up through here, this is a tangent, but yeah, there was a little indoctrine, the good old South, da da da. And you grow up and read more and see like, oh goodness, silly people, to say the least. But that's we survived the Civil War. We were killing each other, hundreds of thousands, and we survived that. And then we had our century plus of flourishing, So I believe that's still there. A geopolitical analyst that I like. I def I like him and disagree with a lot of what he says too, but he has a great phrase where he says, how does he put it? Despite their best efforts, the Democrats and Republicans have been trying to destroy the country for years, and despite their best efforts, they've always failed. The country's still here, and yeah, the act of compromise has waned, but I think we're about to do some big growing up, and we'll survive it. I don't know what that growing up's going to look like, but I'm pretty positive we'll survive it. I know that's an optimist thing. I'm an optimist, so sue me. That's fine.
No, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you. When I mentioned I studied liberal arts, I mostly did like sociology, psychology, and history. So,
Mhm.
in your early 20s, looking directly into the void that is human pathology can be very blackpilling, as it were. Uh,
Yes, yeah,
but
yeah.
what got me out of that state of mind was the realization that, as you said, that greater conflicts have been fought before on this exact same soil, and those people found a way to compromise. And if that's possible to make it out of that, whether it's from here or Soviet Russia or what have you, uh, then certainly whatever transition we're in or in the middle of, we can come out on the other end greater. There's an opportunity there, and it's never been easier to become informed or to uh, have more agency over that kind of process. You don't have to wait for your representative to go on a horse buggy and carriage all the way to
Right.
Congress and back, and read the news of the town square, of which you can't read most likely because you live in a mud hut and you can't afford to go to school. That
Hey,
day,
don't slander mud huts.
Lincoln was born in one, so hey, I no, I mad respect for them. I thank
It
them for
was a
their
log
service.
cabin. It was a log
Log cabin,
cabin.
my mistake.
Mud hut. There was mud involved, very likely, but
Certainly. But no, it gives me faith, looking back on those times, as you said, because if they were able to make it out of that, then we can certainly make it past through this. And that is
yeah.
much more of an attractive idea to hold, that will guide you in a better direction than going the opposite way and either wanting to burn it all down or taking sides politically. At the end of the day, when inflation goes up, all of our dollars devalue. So
Exactly.
there's there's a uniting force there in the consumerist.
Yes, yeah, exactly. But then we have to be honest. Like, well, why did we get to this point? Why are we all uniting now? Well, it's because we relinquished our responsibility to inform ourselves appropriately. And, tough lesson to learn. Hopefully it's not learned at severe cost, like heaven forbid bloodshed and such on a large scale, small scale even. Um, so it's a squiggly wiggly, awful, not awful time, but confusing time, especially what to trust information wise as it's being doled out instantaneously by nefarious parties that are constantly oscillating. Like it's confusing. Uh, and yeah, how do you remedy that? I don't know. You just you look at the sky, take a deep breath, and you work on yourself first. um,
Meet some friends in real life so that you don't have to look at them at a screen and
just
wonder if they're fake.
make something. You become a real judge of character and of life when you make some woodshop, masonry, or sports too. Like go, yeah, do something. Do something with yourself, and that experience will inform you. Don't concede so much to a screen. If it's like giving you political ideas, that's when you need. That's when it's like, great, I have these ideas, but I can't just trust one source anymore, and I need to triangulate my position here, and that it takes a lot of growing up. People's egos too. You have to get out of. Yeah, the first information, I can't remember what it's called, but when you first receive it, you'll cling to it, and then you'll make it yours,
Hmm.
and then it's part of your identity. And you had no power. Like you could have refused it, but you just accept it. But for almost no reason. But now it's a part of you, and it's shaping your belief system, how you see the world, and you didn't even come up with those ideas. So you have to question that. I think that's a skill actually that was eroded. Was kind of people's ability to just question everything. That's the whole Enlightenment. It was a key tenet of the West is question everything. Ask. Ask. It's okay to ask. I don't know if that's, it's not anymore. Like, why can't we study this? Why can't we question this or run this kind of project or this experiment? And people just say no and kill it right there. So that spirals. When you have lots of no's, you can have a lot of dark space to navigate in, and you'll bump into people and conflict. Painting with very general brushstrokes there, but yeah.
No, certainly no. I get the gist of it, and another thing that makes me optimistic that it's we're in the middle of a renaissance, as it were. Is at least here in Toronto, there's a lot of people that I keep up with that are in the tech scene, and
Mm,
there's this one line that they will gladly post, and people in San Fran do it too. It's they're kind of in the same circle, but it's this idea that you can just do stuff.
mm.
That's it.
Do stuff.
You can just do stuff. That's the
Don't
simple
hurt
thing.
anyone, but do stuff.
Yeah, yeah, and I see a lot of people working on various initiatives to help highlight that. Like I went to a conference out in Waterloo, which is past
I
Hamilton, so
see.
that's even more westward. It was started by these students, and Waterloo is a famous university in Canada because it's the top
Yep.
engineering university. And the joke is that their chief exports is coders and developers to San Francisco. Which is actually true. A lot of them do end up going there just because of the competitive salaries, but I digress. Um, but I went to this
That's cool.
conference that was initially started as just a small student gathering of like 10 people in some kind of a lecture room that they rented out at some point years ago, where people got together. They worked on projects side by side, regardless of discipline, whether it was art or engineering or coding or math or what have you. And at the end of the day, they got to showcase their project and talk about it, and more people wanted to get involved just because they weren't feeling fulfilled in school, that it was just all
Mm,
about papers, not really ever like making anything in the real world. um,
yeah.
and eventually this year, this is the first year they've been able to do this, they rented out a hockey arena, filled it with people to the brim, had a whole stage, sound, lights, production. It was super official, got major sponsors from some of the bigger tech companies here in Canada. um, and people came on the stage and showcased their projects, and some of them were a little bit silly, some of them were more serious, but one way or another, it was showcasing the entire range of human creativity. And even though I had no dog in the fight, I'm not a developer. I've never written a line of code in my life. I didn't know anybody there either, but I decided to show up because I figure
Good for
this is
you.
where all that stuff is headed. This is where the next generation is moving towards. And it was nothing
Yeah.
short of inspiring.
Yeah, you felt it.
Yeah.
That's that's right. Just make something. Exactly. There is a yeah, it's a scary thing when a bunch of people get together and they're marching down a street. But yeah, put them in a hall, turn on the lights, and say, "Hey, go for it. Do something. Make something." That's that's the flip side. That's beautiful. Oh yeah. This, I mean, that's tapping into the thing that makes us human. It's our ability to work in groups.
Hmm.
That's going what chimps, any other species other than like the hive mind, no one else can coalesce like us. When we do get together, amazing things can happen. Uh, yeah, chimps. It's I don't know. I think yeah, if you go beyond 100, they start just killing each other, right?
Hmm.
But smaller groups, they're fine. But people, right? You give us a good story or an ideal to work for towards, millions will work towards it. That is inspiring. Thank you.
No, they did all the work. I just showed up, and it's as you said,
Yeah.
it's nothing if not infectious. And that going to these kind of
Exactly.
events and surrounding myself with people, and even though I may be the quote unquote dumbest person in the room because that's not my world,
Then
I'm
you're in the right
outside of it.
place.
Exactly,
Then you're in the right place.
exactly. I I I gain nothing but endless inspiration from being around all those people and hearing them talk. And even though I may not understand everything that they're building, the scope of their ideas and just what's possible. It reminds me that like, hey, like that is possible in this day and age. So you could certainly do something. Doesn't have to be similar, but it just reminds you that yeah, like the everyday people work on these kind of projects, and it's certainly a possibility that not only do they work on them. I mean, they have venture capitalist funds that travel to these kind of events, and they get a lot of investors. And next thing you know, they're starting a company, and they're only 18 or 19 or
Yeah.
what have you.
No, that's beautiful. That's humanity right there. That's the best stuff right there. No, that makes me really happy. Uh, it reminds me of, just forever. No one could break the 4-minute mile until someone did, and then when they did, many more were. You just watch someone do something, and then you can do it and better,
That's right.
which is the right kind of pressure to pull you into the world, and then the world works with you. Positive cycle.
Yeah, there's something to be said for being able to tap into that kind of resource. And I also find hand in hand what I've at least on the engineering side when I've talked to some of these people before is another creative or driving force behind some of the things that they do is frustration. So they'll be, either coding or just working on some kind of a process, and they're like, this is stupid. This is actually stupid. How difficult this is. I can make something that is far more effective.
Mm.
And I find in some artists that I've interviewed also they have this kind of idea pop up every now and then where it just gives them a spurt of inspiration to just think of an alternative way that is still achieving the thing that they want to, but they're removing barriers at the same time, and it's just a much more effective or enjoyable process throughout. That the driving force of frustration.
Yeah, shedding a lens, correcting your vision, as it were, seeing the world more clearly, maybe. Seeing a new path in front of you that you didn't see before, and then let's see where this takes me. That kind of the vibe there.
Yeah. Do you find that you've ever encountered that in your work?
Ah, yeah, I'm all for the slow burn. I'm not in a. For me, I'm not in a race to get anywhere. The point is to take my time. What is time? And it's a silly thing. Uh, you know, there's a degree of reverence that I approach each drawing with. That's a whole other mode and mood to be in. Just this. Yeah, reverence is the word I'll use for it right now. And then it's just for me, like I'm all for people jumping in and discovering new ways to do things, and then other artists leaping across different styles, like Picasso.
Hmm.
I think that's great. I don't think I don't think everyone needs to do that. Um, I think some people can, some people. I'll never say anyone can't do anything. Like my impression of the human spirit is something that's just infinite, And like I've taught people who are convinced they couldn't draw, see the world a certain way, and then shatter that wall. So at an old age, so human spirit's amazing. But for me, it's I just what I love naturally, buildings and architecture, cities. The greatest. Rome wasn't built in a day. It takes time, layer after layer, and I embraced that very early on. Which means for me, each drawing needs to be or can be 5 drawings in one because I'm exploring different ideas that come to me.
Hmm.
So actually, I think this was one of your earlier questions where you might have been leading to it or framing it was just how much do you plan? And you hit the nail on the head. Like for a big drawing, like the one behind me. I know the dear listeners can't see it, but it's a very large, detailed map-like drawing. At the center is a map, circular, and then revolving around it is these sort of vignettes in orbit. And it's a journey. It's one of the actually voyages that I was on around South America, and it's the map for that, drawing for that. But just because I know each one's going to take so much time, I let each drawing be a whole laboratory of experiments. Just and then seeing how those experiments will bump into each other. And isn't that what a journey is anyways? So it becomes self-referential in a very subtle way each drawing, especially if it's about a journey or a voyage. There'll be lots of different perspectives in each drawing, playing with different vantages and even styles, just to see how they harmonize or conflict with each other. Like I've always had this big view kind of reach perspective. Um, so I've just I'm I move slowly, not slow. I work pretty fast too. That's the thing. Yeah, it's the my process is open to a lot, and again, the way how I construct an image is simply I'll sketch in the big shapes where things should be placed. I'd like them to be placed. That'll be in pencil, but then I let the rest be very intuitive, unfold very intuitively. So I like to call it a balance between reason and intuition, logic and intuition. I think that's a wonderful, sweet space to be in a drawing, in art, or in any just being in life, following an intuition, but with an intent, a trajectory that was thoughtfully conjured as well, and just seeing how those things coalesce together and what they result in is, I guess that might be an art in itself. So there you go. Art is arting. Uh, But
Sounds
yeah.
about right. And in terms of the visuals, I've actually so even though we record only audio here, they can't see the cameras. I have been showing your pieces throughout this, so I like have a section of my screen that I record. And I think I stumbled upon the exact piece that is behind you there on your timeline. Which actually would brings me to my next question. Have you ever been in a situation where you just catch yourself being like, "Damn, I've run out of canvas space. I underestimated how big my idea was, and now I am stuck with this small frame that I have to limit myself to." I'd imagine, like, with someone with that perspective, as you just described it, of this weaving force of intuition and also some sense of guidance. I'm sure that's happened before.
Mark, you bring us back to the Nazis, I'm afraid.
How? I would love to hear.
I mean, first of all, terrible people. the worst. You really can't go worse than them. Yeah. But if you were an artist and the state liked you, best time of your life.
Oh yes.
Unlimited funding and resources. I mentioned Spear before. Not the best human. Brilliant. Incredible artist. He just he followed his art along and his art was funded by very dark people and was, you know, creating an image for a very dark regime, but he was allowed to work on a scale immense, monumental, you know, which is for an artist like me, uh, yeah, it's pretty cool. You never run out of canvas essentially in that situation. I'm not aspiring to be the court artist to an awful person. I'm saying that. But it's the same situation with Michelangelo and all those Renaissance artists. Masterpieces, but their patrons, a lot of them were horrific people. Uh, Terrible things. Huge canvas, though. um, so that's just me waxing very Ben. But to answer your question, that's something you learn early on is, the power of a composition. If you want a piece to sing, there has to be a design to it. Doesn't have to be. Doesn't There's sometimes when chaos is great, or hovering around that is great. But generally, if you don't want to fight too many battles with a drawing, you'll have a general vision of where you want it to go and what its parameters will be. That's been my experience, and it's kind of like a poster. You get excited for a cause or a rally or someone's birthday party, and you write "happy" really big, and then birthdays squeezed in really small.
Always.
When you've done always, right? So when you've done that always, insanity is repeating the same mistake constantly. So you learn, and so I've learned to never draw small, to draw even smaller, so you can fit more in. Yeah, I mean, my dream is 100 feet by 100 feet, 100 foot by 100 foot, no, meter, 100 meter by 100 meter wall. Um, and just someone saying, "Have at it. Don't worry. You have 5 years. Create whatever you want." And that's my dream. And to that point as well, there's a short story by uh, Jorge Borges, just about a short story about a sultan commissioning an artist to create a map for his kingdom. And the artist ends up creating a one-to-one map of the kingdom. The map just consumes the kingdom,
Mhm.
and I just love that story. So I'm waiting for that.
Well, I have confidence that your time will come. In the age of VR, you'll soon be able to make that and then print it out and have it the size of the city and cover New York.
You got ideas, Mark. You got some pretty good. I'm feeling the energy. I'm feeling the energy.
Right on. No, because as I'm looking through just how detailed these little portions of it can be, there is just no I don't know. I have a hard time understanding like the scope that you would need to have of knowing where each intersection and building and everything just in its place. I'd imagine like there's time and experience, part of the process, trust the process, all that good stuff that we mentioned before.
Mhm.
But especially to an observer, yeah, looking at something like this, so that's so detailed. Um, I don't know. There's just something that I can't put into words, but the feeling of it is just it's so satisfying seeing how
Ah,
all these like little tiny details come together to create this bigger image. And I'm only looking at like a section of it, of just like one of these circles that's showing, one of the skylines of the city. But when you see the whole piece behind it, as it is, behind yourself there, it's
mhm.
something else entirely.
Yeah, no, that's like I said, I'm all for the big picture, right? Just to be able to see everything all in one view. It's kind of the aspiration of all knowledge, right? The theory of everything kind of thing. Everyone's after some way to put it all together into one phrase, equation, picture, and I love that. It's a very human thing, It brings you right into contact with that Promethean fire almost, the illumination, self-illumination, and illumination of other things. But at the same time, uh, the big picture is also the small picture, as they say, as above, so below, and especially with fractals,
Mm-hmm.
that's the smallest thing echoing up into the largest thing. And I mean, is that not how the mind works? Is that not the magic of consciousness and all that? Like, so there's poetry there that I don't know, I've been able to, at least in my own way, in my own mind, play with drawing buildings, echoing cities and civilizations, and configuring them in my own way, in my own kind of poetics and grammar. It's a lot of fun. Again, it's megalomaniacal, but like I said, I'm not in love with Spear. I'm not. Uh, um, so yeah, my art is very much me, and I'm very much my art in that respect. I use it as a lens to take in and see the world, and vice versa. Um, so again, there's the poetry there. I'm all about tearing down walls between disciplines. Like in the Renaissance, Galileo was an artist. Newton was an artist. Uh,
Polymaths.
and yeah, yeah, they didn't limit themselves. They said there's no walls. It's all related. It's the universe describing itself in different ways. Different lenses. And I think that's we're plugging back into that spirit. I think to your point of the new renaissance occurring, I think a lot of that is because different industries and people at the helm of different endeavors, they're seeing that. You know, biology was just biology, and now it's much more than just simple biology. There's physics involved in chemistry and biology. Like you're only
Mm-hmm.
going to get further if you start recombining all these fields together as opposed to segregating them. And hence all the miracles of science right now. It's amazing. What an age, right? What an age.
What a time to be alive.
Yeah. Let's
How
see.
lucky are we?
Pretty good. Yeah, we are pretty lucky. Pretty lucky.
Yeah. There's an Alan Watts quote that comes to mind.
Mm.
Not sure if you're familiar.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, where he says something along the lines of uh, chaos is just order, but you're zoomed in on a very microscopic part of it. But with every system, the further that you zoom out, the whole thing just seems to have much higher order to it.
Yes. Our interpretation is incorrect. Our first assessment needs some adjusting. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's what art's for. It can be a tool for clarification. It's I'm lost, I can't see, and then someone shows you an image or song. Oh, that's what it is, or that's the sense of it, huh? There's just some music that you listen to, and then you just every problem's forgotten. Or you have that epiphany, or it just shifts. Music's great when it just reminds you of the sky, right? You can't be mad
Mm-hmm.
if you're looking at the sky. Those thoughts go away pretty quickly. And so any art that can do that, beautiful, powerful.
Everlasting.
Yes, yeah. Well, the infinite, right? That's what we're chasing after. Catch up with it once in a while.
Yeah, there's something to be said about those archetypal stories and just basic building blocks of the human condition. I mean, that's why we have authors like Shakespeare and Dostoevsky that are still timeless to this day. Homer's Iliad, right? Like people
Oh,
people still read it now. There's a reason why so much of the Greek culture has survived, and whenever we're able to kind of come close to that in regardless of the endeavor, whether it's art, science, engineering, what have you, anytime that we're able to kind of uh, touch that briefly, if but for a moment,
yeah,
there's
yeah.
something just beautiful about that I will outlive the people that came up with it.
It gets rid of time all of a sudden, doesn't it? That silly, pesky thing.
Or back to time.
Always. We'll
Yeah,
break it. We'll break it. We'll see past it. Yeah.
soon enough. Soon enough. But no, it seems more rare these days to kind of witness those works. But I don't buy into that idea that it's this it's a quick and easy thing to judge what's in the mainstream and like what's popular, whether it's Mr. Beast on YouTube or the new Marvel
Mm.
movie or what have you. But at the same time, if you look deep enough, there's millions of indie creators out there in every single discipline, just quietly with their head down, putting into work, and every now and then you'll see their piece or movie or what have you come out into the open, and it gets embraced and loved by everyone. And until then, we have to deal with the commercialization of media
Yeah.
or what have you. But every now and then, we still get a glimpse of greatness.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah, totally right. It's out there. It's a statistic inevitability. 8 billion people on the planet. The odds of a Michelangelo or Da Vinci there's 10 of them walking around right now at the very least. It's just, do they have the forum or means to share what they have, or do they prefer to be more intimate and you know in their own little place? It's yeah, yeah. You got to go out and seek and ye shall find, right? That's what they say too. People say a lot of things, especially this crazy one.
Yeah, especially us today. Yeah. No, it's amazing, and I love that that you've been able to use art as an extension of yourself and not just as something that is not side gig might not be the right word for it, but just kind of like a an add-on. Instead, you live through your art, and your art lives through you.
Yes, yeah. No, that's the point.
That's got to be
There's no
liberating.
wall. Sorry?
That's got to be liberating.
Yeah, oh, yes. It is. I mean, I'm not telling you the whole thing. Of course, when you're starting a piece, it's it's horrific. Like it's terrifying sometimes. Here we go. You're looking at a canvas or a large piece of paper and I mean, it's many things. It's pristine and pure, the canvas, untouched. Or in other terms, it's complete chaos. There's nothing there. How do I bring order to the, or is that my goal? So it's a lot of, but then you just do. You just do, and that's the point. You're creating. And I think if you shed all the words we said today and boil it down to one thing, it's just the act of creation. Just to create something, and I think that's something all of our greatest works that's what they encapsulate. They're just creation. It's about creating something. The act of creating doesn't matter. The fact that it was started is what matters.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter where it goes, and it doesn't matter what came before it, but the fact that it was started. It was creating. The verb, active verb, just creating, being created. Um, That's it. That's where it is. But then it's unfolding, developing. You enjoy that as much as you can. And then for me, my personal account is it's a slog sometimes. But I trust, you just trust in the work. Create, create, create. It's kind of like I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. And
Mm-hmm.
around halfway, I'll know a piece is going in the right direction is if I start looking at it more than I'm drawing it. I just stop and I'm just looking and staring at it. That's when I know the piece is going in the right direction. That's when I know it's alive. It's starting to work on me. It's saying, look, 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 feel, fall into me. And that's the magic. I mean, it gets words will kind of fail at this point, but it just pulls you along. That's the muse.
Mm-hmm.
That's the flow state, I think some people will call it. There's a lot of different things, but it becomes again, the opposite pressure, negative pressure force, where it just pulls you along, not pushes you, but pulls you, and you're chasing it sometimes, or it's just pulling you. Many things.
It's addicting.
Yeah, and that's the point. Like it's the mana, it's the ambrosia, it's good for the soul. It's your soul, kind of talking and dancing with you. So
Yeah, there's something so alluring to it. It reminds me. I used to play the trumpet in high school.
ah, I still doodle a little myself. Really?
Um,
Fantastic.
yeah, it was. I loved it. Great. It was great to be able to be the loudest in the room, and have an excuse for it. But I remember this one senior student. I think I was either in grade 9 or 10, but this one senior student for his extra credit, he uh, he set up like I guess an improvisational club or like an improv club but with instruments, and he broke it down to us because I was not the greatest at music theory. I could follow sheet music, but I was no savant. Um, so
You
I
could tie
couldn't
your
play.
shoes.
Yeah, exactly. I could tie my shoes, but sprinting or doing the long jump was a little bit out of my
Mm.
forte. But I could walk. I could walk and hold a beat, so that was good enough for me. But he broke it down to us, and he gave us a range of notes, and based on that range, he told us like if we're working in this key with like a saxophone and all these various instruments, there's only maybe five of us in the room, and he just broke it down to a science. Like, all right, if you're feeling stuck, hit any of these four keys and just play around with them, see how you feel. We're all gonna mess up. There's no doubt about it. This is gonna be messy. It's gonna be ugly, but just trust the process and go with it. And
Mm.
being in that moment, uh, even as an amateur, but just feeling the notes and swinging with the rhythm, there was just something that like overtakes you to a point that you have
Yeah.
seemingly no control over, and you're part of it, and everyone's because it's in a group effort. You get that other like the team spirit from it as well,
Yeah.
and there is something that nothing. It's nothing short of magical. That feeling.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Uh, I'm so happy you got to experience that. That's and let alone in a school band program. That's you found the sublime in where you weren't supposed to.
Yeah, it was easily like one of my favorite after school activities. Unfortunately, the club didn't last long, but the
Mm.
few times that we were able to get together, they do stand out in my mind far more than any time that we just followed the conductor. And there's a beauty in that too,
Yeah. Yeah.
in playing classical music. But yeah, being able to do improv and have it structured to an extent, or at least explained to you in a simple way so that it was accessible. Um, yeah, when you lost yourself in that feeling, it was unlike anything else. Because there's very few times in day-to-day life, especially if you work a 9 to 5, where you have that opportunity to channel
Right.
the muse in that way.
Yeah. No, that's it. That's yeah. That that's what it's all about. Wow. That now that's the key is to bring that into as many people's lives as possible, or
Hmm.
sharing it, just sharing it. Uh, and that's where different arts manifest that feeling. A painting, it's always there in that one moment. Or drawing music, it's live. There's the tempo, it's moving. It's ephemeral, but it's there. Uh, and then literature and da 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 da. But yeah, the trick is to share that, to give people access to it. And that yeah, that's one of the things that makes us human in the best way. Inspiration, doing that together with other people, yeah, that's that's divine, you know.
Something so simple, start done by students, and yet it gives you a feeling like no other. You can't get that high off of any drug, or at least have a lasting memory of it afterwards.
No, well, that's the thing. You got everything inside of you to reach any pinnacle or any low, and then you choose what catalyzes. You choose your own catalysts essentially. For me, it's art. Others, it's music. Others, it's drugs or a loved one or whatever. It's all chemistry. But yeah, to share it, figure it out with a group like that is really cool. I had another point, but it vanished. So I don't want to just spiral into what I just said. It just kind of disappeared. But yeah, no, with the teaching is an important thing too. Just giving people access, giving them the tools and courage to just use the tools, as this friend of yours did. He said, make the mistakes. I'm giving you 4 or 5 notes. Hit them once in a while with the rest of us, and things will line up once in a while, and it'll be great. And you trusted in the process. You created together, and of course, that happened. That was the result. And that is why music is so much more accessible, I think, these days than other arts for people to plug into that kind of ecstasy or revelry or tap into something at a higher kind of
Hmm.
resonance for them. Because I think a lot of people don't have the vernacular for some of the other arts anymore. Like poetry, that used to be the art form, and now it's almost totally sidelined. Myself, it resonates. Took me forever to get it, and then one day poetry just clicked, and I just love it. As you mentioned with Homer and such, like,
Hmm.
yeah. Uh, the music, I think that's the thing. Just because of all the social media, it's so ubiquitous. Just the radio, television, internet. There's always a soundtrack of some sort, or some. Even the news has its own theme and da 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 da.
Oh yeah.
Radio shows. So I think it's more. Yeah, it's just the not necessarily the lowest hanging fruit, but just most accessible. Whereas a lot of people don't know how to read or even to look at a painting or a drawing anymore. That just they just let as long as it's shocking,
Hmm.
or blaring, it's very submissive in that way viewing. Whereas in the artist role, to be an artist is to see things very actively. Your eyes become hands. You engage with the world that way in a very tactile way. Um, Now, your eyes are questions, constantly questioning things as well. Uh, but that's not really taught so much. It's more of a do this exercise, you passed your art class, and it's a pity. So,
Certainly. And that spirit of the muses, as we mentioned, is the fact that you did do all this teaching. Is it because you saw what channeling that in your own life and where it led you and what you've learned that you wanted to, as you said, share it with as many people as possible? Is that how you like transition into that? Essentially, it just felt like a natural extension of it. Like, oh, this gives me this amount of fulfillment. Now imagine if I could spread that to as many other people as possible.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I've always taught in a as a like a more of a private instructor or leading my own kind of workshops or a program of my own design. It's never plugged into the more you know proper academic structure of a middle school, high school, college,
Hmm.
university, da da da. So I've always had the freedom to teach art in my own way. Teach art as another art. It's a little recursive again.
Hmm.
Art, the art of teaching. And so I did have some marvelous teachers who just made that connection, and just when that occurs, you can't not share it. You just because you remember the delight it gave you, and then you see the delight it gives others, you just want to share it. Um, and then as I got into more teaching, it's never been my main thing, but I do love it. Started reading about teachers and teaching, and there's one getting back to music, uh, conductor, music organizer, Benjamin Zander. He's up in New England.
Hmm.
Anyway, he had a TED Talk, one of the best TED Talks ever, and it's just about possibility and connecting with people. So very foundational for me. But you know you're doing it right when you just see the lights in people's eyes light up. That's when you know you're doing it right. And so I don't know, it's fun to chase after that, and hence the joy of teaching. Of course, you get some bastards, but that's fun too. Yeah, no one's impossible. No one's impossible.
No, I know what you mean about the eyes lighting up because I actually wanted to be a teacher out of
Mm.
out of high school. Unfortunately, I was a little bit. Not unfortunately, no. I am where I am because I made those decisions. But it was unfortunate the way that I saw that system going as it's kind of slowly collapsing, at least up here in Canada, with the way that public schooling is going, and the way that certain topics and subjects are framed, art especially. It's a shame what's been done to it in the academic institutions. But those few teachers that I did have that made such an impact on my life, uh, that impact was so substantial that I had wanted to be in their shoes and potentially one day uh, be lucky enough
Mm.
to impart that on the next generation. And it's a very powerful drive to be able to command a room, but not in like an authoritative way, but
No,
in
no, just like an authoritative. You got it too. You don't pretend.
a I did. You know what? No, on the authoritative thing, I did realize because I took a there was a senior class in my high school where you could do essentially become a TA for a high school teacher, where you would like help them like grade marks and quizzes and whatnot. But then you'd have the chance to have your own lesson at one point, and standing in front of a room of kids when you're the senior and they're in grade 9, that's a powerful feeling. I having that power for a moment there, I was like, oh, this is addicting. This is they're all quiet. This is this is a little bit too much.
Yeah, that's the tip of the spear right there.
Yeah, it's a tough balance to master. And then after having done that unsuccessfully and done my amateur lesson, it gave me even more respect to good teachers because I was like, man, there's some people that are just straight up on autopilot doing this, and there's some people that actually they'll craft a narrative. They'll say that quote. They'll pull out some historic example. They will have a lecture that can have an impact on you for the rest of your life, unlike anything else.
Yeah.
I had this one teacher in grade 10. Um, we somehow managed to have a class of 27 guys and 3 girls. So in high school, complete just absolute ape monkey exhibit at the zoo. Um, and the fact that he was able to corral us at all was a feat of its own. But not only that, he was able to because he taught a basic 20th century world history, um,
Okay.
and boys always love to learn about war, naturally.
Yeah.
Uh, and just the way that he was able to craft these narratives, it commanded the room that regardless of whatever social contract you walked in with, right? Who's the popular kid? Who's this? Who's that? All
Yeah.
of that faded away. And the fact that he was able to do it in a room full of majority boys at that age, with all the testosterone flying around and everything, all the social drama, it was nothing short of spectacular. And to this day, I still I look up to him. Amazing impact. And anyone that I speak to that took that same class now will say the exact same thing about him.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. Uh, the class it was 2 classes in 1, how to learn history and how to teach a class. Like, it's very economical as well.
Yeah.
Tip my
Do
hat to him.
have you had a I'm guessing you have had instructors that have stood out to you, at least in the art world.
Yeah, of course. It's wonderful. Great teachers and some terrible teachers, so you learn what not to do ever, and
Hmm.
that way you don't have to learn what not to do. You just see them doing it, so you avoid it entirely. Like it's awful to endure a class like that, but in the long run, it was didn't have to learn those lessons myself. Or I learned them without having to live them. Just
Hmm.
you know what I mean. But I did have some great professors in college and in high school. Uh, I'll tell you one quick story from high school because it's funny and pertinent to this past voyage, and then I'll give you a professor from college, personalities you encounter. But in high school, do you know who Ibn Battuta is?
Can't say I do.
Yeah, I don't expect you to. This was like an AP history class, world history. We had to read this really dry academic college book, and we're all 10th graders,
Hmm.
sophomores, and almost no one in class actually read the book, and this is kind of so we're all reading the Spark Notes or whatever's on the internet. Yeah,
Yep.
this is early stuff, and we're like, "What is this about?" Da 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 da. We're all on the early instant messenger apps and things like that. What? I don't know what I'm doing. So we're all writing these crazy papers and then turn them in the next day. I get the first, biggest, fattest F of my life. It was horrific. And the terror that met me at home was indescribable. But a lot of people dropped out of that class. I ended up sticking with it. And so Ibn Battuta, he was from Morocco, 12th or 13th century Moroccan uh, merchant and explorer, as it were. He just ended up traveling the world, and he wrote an account of it over 29 years. He made it all the way to China, and through the Golden Horde and the steppe of Asia, and then through India, all over the place. Amazing travel for that time. But this was all put into a very dense, dry book that none of us could comprehend. I got an F on this paper. A lot of people dropped out. I stuck with the class. The teacher, we got graded on the notes. Just did you
Hmm.
take notes? So I ended up just putting like a title page on the notes. And I'd always put like a map illustration because she responded to that one time. Kept doing it. She liked it. So I think that's where my early love for maps might have started. I don't
Hmm.
know. But on this last trip, I actually made it to the guy's grave, Ibn Battuta's grave in
Oh
Tangier,
wow.
Morocco. It's a beautiful circular moment, and I walked right up to it. I'd been to Tangier before. He has a mausoleum in the city. Sometimes it's open. I knocked on the door, no one. But the second visit, knocked on the door, no one. But then it creaked, and this ancient crypt keeper emerged, totally blind, looks exactly how you imagine him to. A real creature, speaking in horrific French, and then I responded in my horrific French, and we had ourselves a horrific conversation, and I gained access to the tomb, walked up to the coffin, placed my hand on it. That was a wonderful moment, and it was poetic. I failed this. I got a F on this paper. Ended up doing great in the class eventually because of this teacher kind of encouraged a real challenge. You just want to, when someone challenges you, you want to prove yourself. She
Hmm.
afforded kind of that first opportunity in my life to do that. And then I ended up meeting the guy, Ibn
In a
Battuta.
way.
Yeah, I don't know. Beautiful little journey. And then I'll keep this story short. College, I had a very marvelous professor from the Soviet Union, believe it or not. So he trained to kill us all.
Comrade.
Um, yes, from Red Army, paratrooper.
Wow.
And but he was classically trained, so he's a brilliant draftsman and a master of human anatomy, composition, da 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 da. So but he was a tough grader. You ever see Whiplash?
Oh yeah. I'm
He
familiar.
was him. He was him. He was the instructor. Like it
Throwing
was that
pencils.
level of intensity and condescension at times. Uh, there's some stories, but I don't want to diverge too far. But it was this kind of struggle, but wanting to like prove yourself, which
Hmm.
was, it was because he had an accent, because he was from Russia, because he had all this life experience. He was this totally new like thing to figure out what's going on, and he knows everything about art. He's kind of the gatekeeper of art history and how to be a master artist, and you know, really pushed me. But really quick story, I missed one of the classes. Took several classes with him. Missed one of his classes. We had a we were drawing hands, learning how to draw hands, and
The
I
worst.
missed this one. Yeah, yeah. I missed this one class where they had a model, and I came to the next class. The model didn't show, and he said, "You're the model today," because I had missed the first class. So I sat down. I was a nail biter. Occasionally am still, but I'm like, I have hideous hands. Anywho, place my hands down for the class to draw, and they're all like, but Ben has hideous hands. So I'm there, and it was interesting because in his class, we would be drawing a model in front of us, nude model, standing at an easel, drawing, and he'd come around the class. He smelled like cigarettes. He smoked, so you would smell him before you feel the tap. So it's getting closer. He's getting close, and he would tap your shoulder, which means you're doing something horrifically wrong, and he's going to correct your drawing and also insult you and destroy you. And so he taps you, you get up, he starts correcting the drawing beautifully. He just drew, the way he drew was beautiful, poetic, fluid. Uh, but you would always just see the back of his head because you're standing behind him as he's
Mhm.
correcting your drawing, looking at the model. He does a great job. And you just watch him do it, and then he's insulting you and building character, character development. Uh, but you never see his face, I realized. So this one day, as the model, looking at all my peers drawing my hands, I could watch him going around the room, tapping on people's shoulders, telling them to get up, him sitting down, and then him drawing. Uh, and this was the greatest lesson of my life, actually, was watching him, because what he did was he would sit down, he'd tap someone's shoulder, they'd move aside, he'd sit down, have a severe face on, and he would start drawing me, the model, me, my
Mhm.
hands, and he was very severe. Whenever you talk to him, he would have a look very, powerful, stoic, intimidating. Uh, but as he would start to draw, that would evaporate completely, and what would paint itself across his face is the biggest smile. He loved to draw. I had never seen this before, but as he started to draw, the tension in his face would disappear and he would just smile and have the goofiest face that none of us ever saw except the model. And then it dawned on me that drawing is delightful. It could be delightful. It could be fun and enjoyable. And that was the greatest lesson. Just someone like him, this like mountain of a person, just turning into a little puppy was incredible. And so I always remind myself of that. If it's tense or the drawing's going a certain way or whatever, it's fun. It's it's fun. It's lovely. It's enjoyable. And so that's my too long of stories presented to you about teachers and just their magic and what a privilege it is to try to be one.
No, that's beautiful, especially that second story, because everything you described about him, like, yeah, that sounds like a Soviet uh
We both
50s,
had one,
60s
right?
something year old. Yeah, no, I get it. Still to this day people tell me that I look like I'm angry, but it's like, no, I'm just Russian. This is just how my face looks. I can't help
You
it.
looked furious.
But no, that
Yeah.
is wow. That's a very interesting teachable moment. Um, from his strictness and everything, that doesn't surprise me because I've encountered that plenty myself in my personal life, family or otherwise. But yeah, the Russians know how to time their intensity, but at the same time, this idea of embracing play and how important that is to the process. Uh, that is, yeah, that is just life giving you instructions through experience. No
Yeah,
words, no rubric, nothing. You're just there
exactly.
witnessing the moment.
Well put. Exactly. And the more of that, less words, the better. Just pure interaction, pure witnessing, just the immediate sort of transference. Yeah, that's the magic again.
Yeah, there's something to be said to lean into that, because the more that you do, the the more sense that life makes. It wasn't until um about like 2 weeks ago or so that I realized that what we're doing now, having these conversations. This is what I'd like to do for a living. And it wasn't until I realized just how fun it is to speak to people across the globe and have people like yourself come on the show and have these experiences and share these things. Like the joy that I derive from that, I was like, oh, that's the rub. That's the thing.
Mm,
That whatever that is, I need to lock
that,
into
just send
that.
me that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give me more of that. Whatever it is. Even if I fail, even if I mess up, even if there's issues. It's there's if there's no other feeling that or no other thing that gives me that feeling on the planet, well, the choice is clear. Now it's just a matter of like, can I sustain myself long enough to make something of it?
Yes. The answer is yes.
It's a beautiful instinct. No, and I love that both of those stories really just the that is interesting how poetic it came out to be your journey from initially learning about him and all this frustration that was put on that historic figure. The fact that you're able to go to his tomb and meet him in a way.
Yeah. No, he said hi. He knocked on there was a knock from the inside. Oh, but yeah. No, yeah, I mean, that class, that teacher inspired ignited, I think, my love for history, and then just the rest was history.
It is beautiful how it can be poetic in that sense that something from some kind of past struggle will eventually like rear its head in a way that you least expect, and you're able to not necessarily make your peace with it but just give it a conclusion, or as you said, see it from a much bigger perspective years down the line
Yes.
and see all the intertwining forces. When back then it was seemed like, oh my, I hate this. This is awful. Why do I have to read this stupid paper, this stupid textbook? And then like, a decade later, you're moving to your next apartment or what have you. Just pick up this book and you're like, oh my god, the meaning that I derive from that experience is just nothing that I could have ever
Yes.
imagined in that moment.
Yeah, yeah, that's the shock. Oh my god, am I living life?
Am I alive?
Wow.
What is time?
Uh, well, look who's asking the questions now. You finally asked the right question.
About
Yeah,
time,
no,
because
no.
I was just gonna say we're about to reach the 3 hour mark here, so I don't want to keep you for longer than you have to be.
Oh, wow, 3 hours. Well, you're pretty good at this.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah,
I
good.
hope to one day be able to support myself on it, and not have to work a 9 to 5. But no, it's been fun. I've interviewed artists from a wide range of mediums and backgrounds, and every interview is unique, and it's nearly impossible to compare them. Uh,
Yeah, of
but
course.
I have had a hell of a time. I really appreciate you making the effort and taking the time to share all your experiences because yeah, it's illuminating. It's nothing short of illuminating to hear perspectives from people like yourself.
Oh, thank you, Mark. I I think you're gonna do fine. This was, you got me to tell all my secrets, so you'll be able to eat soon enough.
Yeah,
Likewise, it was a real pleasure to finally meet and chat, and, this all started from a couple back and forth messages on X, on Twitter, and here we are. It's a real pleasure.
here we are.
We'll stay in
Uh,
touch. We'll stay in touch.
oh no, please do, please do. I would love to have you back on and share more stories of your travels across the world, and maybe even be lucky enough to take a class of yours at one point.
Oh, I would be honored to, give you all of the secrets passed on to me from the Russian. He'd be happy to.
I bet.
Yeah.
On that note, do you have any upcoming exhibitions or anything that you'd like to feature? Or are you just taking a break from all your travels at the moment?
No, this little, 2.5 weeks was my little break. Um, yeah, I guess in closing, shortly, I'll be going to Mexico City. I work with a gallery down there, and they've lined up, some commission work, so it'll be exciting to spend the summer mostly in Mexico. They're lovely, and that's such a great city. I don't know if you've made it down there have ambitions or designs for Mexico, but it's an amazing country. Um, and Mexico City is just powerhouse of art right now. So super excited to spend time there. And then closing out the summer, I have an artist residency in Virginia, back here in Virginia, in the mountains. I've been craving mountains for a while, so I'm excited for that. And I'll be doing the project I'm doing there is a large drawing, naturally, of the United
Mm,
States. I've always wanted to do one of the country, and it's for the kind of it's in honor for the 250th anniversary coming up. So I just wanted to have the time and space to create something because it's an interesting mile marker for the country and a point of reflection. And then following that, I have a little voyage planned from Rome to Fort Lauderdale, kind of a with another line, another cruise line, but a similar sort of teaching artist residency, but in short miniature form, just for 2 weeks. So we'll see how that goes. And then, yeah, other things. Always little things, big things. But it's always a pleasure to, yeah, interact, to wander in the dark and run into, passionate people like yourself and enjoy conversations like this. It's a real treat.
no, certainly, and thank you. I appreciate you saying that. And if people want to support your work, is there like a store where they can go to? Is it just bensacart.com? That's where they can find all your prints.
That's it. Yeah, pretty simple. As I mentioned, if you're more ambitious, I work with two galleries. One in Mexico City is Galleria Ethra, ETHRA. So you can check out them. But also in Miami, the Robert Fontaine Gallery. They have a bunch of my original work there, larger pieces. So if you really wanted to collect something, welcome something into your humble collections, it'd be a privilege. But yeah, otherwise my website, Instagram, I post things. TikTok, I posted 2 things, and I think that might be it. And then X as well. That's how we met. So
Beautiful. Well, yeah,
I Ben Sack. Those are the handle names essentially, all across the board.
that's right. And yeah, we'll feature everything in the video description, so we'll make sure that people can go ahead and support this because yeah, just I've seen some of the progress videos that you've posted here on your Instagram, obviously sped up, um,
No,
but
that's real time with my foot.
you learned a lot of a lot of things in that Russian, I tell you.
It's part of a traveling circuit. It was the bear, really, but
Fair enough. But yeah, so we'll link everything in the description if people want to support you. So yeah, once again, Ben, I really do appreciate you making the time. It's been a lovely conversation. Can't believe just how quick it flew by.
yeah, lovely indeed, and all the best to you, Mark. I look forward to our next conversation.
Likewise.
Right. Take care, all right?
You as well. Have yourself